Standard Time today. This is being recorded as a reminder. Thank you very much, and it will be shared. Our next group that will take the stage, we're going to talk about voting and policy. So this conversation is about voter suppression, policies to watch, ways to stand up and stand out. And I want to bring to the stage some amazing local leaders. We have Cheryl, Gwen, Mattia Powell, and I do know that we have Representative Tony Antonio, who is supposed to join us as well, but he may have been called somewhere else. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And Tony, if you pop in, just come on through. So welcome to the stage. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes,
so
thank you
I
for
want
having
you to,
me.
okay, thank you. So what I'd like for you to do, Cheryl, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what your work is here, and then we'll jump into questions, and Mattia to be used next. Unmute, Sheryl.
Sorry about that. I thought I had unmuted, my mistake. My name is Cheryl Gwen. I'm currently the president of the Nashville branch of the NAACP. The purpose of the NAACP is to advocate against inequality. That is our big umbrella. That is what we do. We have several different branches in which that we attack inequality, including housing, healthcare, economic development, education, criminal justice, legal redress, prison our prison branch advocacy as well, environmental concerns. So we hit all aspects of human life through our advocacy.
Thank you, Cheryl. Mattia, over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mattia Powell. I'm the executive director of Civic Tennessee. And Civic Tennessee serves as a backbone organization to a coalition of nonprofits that are working to build a multiracial democracy. We support nonprofits in doing voter engagement activities such as voter registration and GOTV and even advocacy work. We provide, tools, training, resources, and to help organizations really engage with their constituents around, elections. And I know there are a lot of nonprofits on this call, so I'm very excited about that. And if any of you are ever interested in doing civic engagement, I'm happy to talk to you. Nonprofits really do have a unique space in civic engagement. I know a lot of times it's like, why would I do this? We have so many other things to do. We're service providers. We got so much on our plate. But nonprofits are in the community all the time when candidates and political parties are not. You are meeting people's needs on basic needs. And so you have a level of trust that a candidate or a party could never really develop. And nonprofit votes have done multiple studies around how nonprofits have been effective in doing civic engagement work. And in 2018, they did a study with nonprofits across the state that were new to civic engagement. And what they found out is that, nonprofits were more likely, 11 times more likely to engage voters, twice more likely to turn out, voters of color in particular and young voters. So, you have a tremendous space for nonprofits to do this work. And so we're here to help you do it if you're interested. So that's and Gwen, it's great. Cheryl, it's great to be with you. It's been a while since we've been together. So it's very great to be on this panel with you.
It's good to see you too, Mattia.
This is so awesome. This is a love fest. And I do want to send all of us to send up some rays of sunshine. The wonderful Senator Brenda Gilmore was supposed to be here today as well in community with us, but she is under the weather. So please send up some love and support for her. I'm sure she is out there listening. We should have Honorable Judge Rachel Bell on, and we'll have the Honorable Judge Sheila Calloway on a little later. So I'm looking at my schedule. This is going to be a full day, so please stick around. So we're going to start with this first question, which, Mattia, we did not rehearse this, right? But how does the redistricting plan impact the Black vote? And what are our options as citizens of Nashville or any city around the United States facing the same types of issues?
Well, this is a really timely question, and we Civic Tennessee worked closely with the NAACP on this issue. And I will just say, I understand that redistricting is complicated. A lot of folks, don't really understand what it is and what it does and how to engage in it. And in Tennessee, in particularly, it is done within the people that draw the maps are the people that are in power. So if the party that's in power are the party that actually runs the process to draw the maps. In other states, there are places that have independent commissions that draw maps that are, not political, or at least they're bipartisan, but that is not how it works in Tennessee. And so this current map it split up Davidson County, particularly for us here in Nashville, our congressional districts. For as long as I can remember, as long as Davidson County has been consolidated government, we've had at least one solid congressional district. There has been times when a small portion of Davidson County may have been in another district, but for the most part, Davidson County has always been whole. And this year we have seen the legislature split Davidson County into 3 congressional districts. So what does that mean? That means we have 3 different representations for our county now. We don't have that one person to go to. Most likely, most of our representatives won't live in Nashville, Davidson County. And really the most terrible part of this is that it has diluted the Black vote, and to the point where we will be very small percentages of every district. And I don't have, I'm trying to think of all the percentages, and maybe Cheryl, you'll have them, and I don't have them at the top of my head. But Davidson County is about 28% African American. But now I think the most percentages in one of these congressional districts that Black voters have is like, I think 16%. And that is the 7th district. I think in the 5th district, we might be like 8 or 9%. And then in the 6th district, we might be 6%. So like extremely diluted our power in the state. And I don't want to just talk about our congressional districts. I mean, if you look across the maps, if you look at the House maps, or our House of Representative maps, if you look at our Senate maps, you'll see that they really did dilute like the Black and brown population. There's a place in Laverne now, if you look at the census data, Laverne, which is right outside of Davidson County, our neighbor, they are considered now a majority minority city. They're not all Black, but if they only make 42% of the population. Laverne is white, so the rest of the population is Black and Hispanic and others, right? They've taken that part of Laverne, and instead of connecting it with Murfreesboro, Smyrna, or Nashville, they've connected it all the way to a rural part of Rutherford County. So like they really have, not just in this congressional map, if you look at all of the maps, Black votes have been diluted across the state. So, and what does that mean? It means that people feel like that their vote don't count, because when you vote and you don't have any kind of influence of what's happening, then you think, why am I voting? So it creates voter apathy, but we shouldn't give up. So Cheryl, I'm gonna let Cheryl, you may want to have some comments on this too, because I know NAACP worked hard with us on this.
We did, and thank you so much, Mattia, because we actually held hearings back in August. So we've been on top of this since the beginning, as far as us with Mattia's organization, Civic Tennessee as well, in making sure that our legislators knew what we were asking for them to do. We had points in place, and specifically when we held hearings, what we mean is that we had a virtual situation similar to what is here today, with representatives from all organizations that then spoke about what they wanted to see happen with the redistricting plan. So we gave specific detail. That information has been recorded, so they were well aware of what we wanted to do and what we wanted to see happen. They were well aware of our concerns. And they chose to do something completely different. At the NAACP, we held a meeting where we invited the Planning Commission, the Redistricting Planning Commission, to meet with us, to explain their map and how they came up with the things that they did. And they have come up with their position is that, oh, this was done just basically by the numbers. Our goal was to make things as even as possible throughout Davidson County and throughout the state as well, through the numbers. But when you listen to what Mattia just stated, as far as the areas that are the most affected, there is just no way that that's possible. There is just no way that it is possible that the numbers were the only things that were considered. And when you look at it from that standpoint, when you look at what the effect has been, there's no way that that can be looked at as being fair. There's no way at looking at that as being something that equalizes anything, because anytime you are polarizing something the way that they have done, it's automatically wrong. And you have to start from the drawing board. They are refusing to do that. They are refusing to change anything in their position, although they knew what we have asked for. And then they tried to push it through even more quickly. So we're struggling because, of course, all of us are preparing for Martin Luther King's birthday, which would have been on that, I believe it was on the 17th. That was the observation day. Everyone is preparing for that. And then they say, well, no, we're going to go ahead and put the vote in on the 18th of January. So the 17th was MLK's observation for his birthday. The 18th, they say, oh, we're going to go ahead and push it in. We're going to have everybody vote at 8:30 that morning. Insane. The purpose of doing that quickly was to keep us from being aware, to keep us from being able to fight. But thankfully, there were protests that were there and available. So yes, we have been on top of this and looking at this and making sure that our goal at this time for advocacy, because of course, yes, we are aware that it has gone to Governor, I almost said Haslam, excuse me, to, I can't think of his name.
Governor Lee.
Thank you. I had a brain freeze. Please excuse me. I know his name. But we know that it has gone to Governor Lee. But at this point, the main thing that we are doing for advocacy is making sure that people do not forget the fight is not over. Just because this is where we are, the fight is not over. Let me say that for everybody in the back. The fight is not over. We are here to continue to keep this in the forefront, to make sure that our legislators know we did not forget. We are not being passive. We are not going to just sit there and let this happen. You will continuously know that this is a problem for us, and we will not continue to stand for it.
Thank you so much for that. And, you know, in looking at our audience, we have hundreds of people here, hundreds of people streaming, and they say, wow, I had no idea this was going on. What advice would you like to share with those looking to take any action? And what we know is, like Mattia said, we have a lot of nonprofits here, but we also have some people that are in some for-profit organizations. We have parents, we have retirees, we have veterans. So what would you give them as some things that they can do today to go and address or support the work that we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, so unfortunately, the maps have passed. I mean, I know, you know, we're working with the NAACP and others to see if there are any other, you know, legal opportunities for us. But I mean, the maps are what they are at this point. So we've done all the advocating we can on that sense, but we still have our own power to do something, right? We need to be really focused on making sure that every person is registered and is really engaged in this process. And I say this because I talk about voting and everybody talks about voting a lot. And I want to be clear about that. Like, I feel like we've kind of talked about voting as this it's this panacea. Like, it's once you vote, everything's fixed. And that's not true. You know, voting is just the first step. So I like to be clear about how the voting is important, but it is just the first step. After you vote, you have to really understand what's happening and hold your leaders accountable. And so that's why connecting with a group like the NAACP or Civic, or even some of you that probably do some level of advocacy, is super important to get people engaged. So one thing you can do is look at your phone, go through your contacts and see if there's anybody in your contacts that you think might not be registered to vote. Now, I know I do this all the time, and everybody's like, I don't know anybody not registered. But you know what, if you really think through it, you got a cousin, you know, you got, you know, a friend from high school, you have somebody that may not be registered to vote, may not be engaged in this process. And so have a conversation with them, ask them, help them get registered, help them get engaged. Like, it's going to take, you know, us really making sure that everybody is paying attention for us to really see some impact. So I think that's one thing that everybody can do. We have some tools that we've been using for people to do that, like relational organizing tools, but you don't need any of that really. All you need to do is just call your people and be like, hey, are you registered to vote? Can I help you get registered? Elections are coming up this year. We have our county elections. We also have, you know, our state Senate and House seats that could be up. And then we have congressional races this year. So it's a midterm election year. So there'll be tons of things on the ballot. Senate, Congress, everything will be on the ballot this time. So making sure that everybody knows it's an election year and that they need to be ready to vote. There's going to be multiple times you can vote this year. So really educating your family and friends on this process. That's something that everybody can do.
Thank you. What about you, Cheryl? Anything to add to that?
Yes, I absolutely co-sign that with Mattia. The issue, and I hope I didn't mislead anyone, and because Mattia is exactly correct. The advocacy as far as trying to change the redistricting plan is over. But when I'm saying that we are advocating, our position is to let them know that this still is not okay. And like Mattia was saying, yes, that means that even more of a reason that we have to be out here voting, because because things that were done purposely were done to make sure that our voices were not going to have the strength that they have previously had. And so if we are not voting in droves and in numbers and making sure that we are being collective and encouraging each other to make sure that our voices are heard, they will win. And that's something that we cannot allow to happen. So I completely co-sign what she was saying, just making sure that we are talking to people, even if someone may have had a felony on their record or is unable to vote currently. There are ways and organizations that are here that can help them to restore their voting rights. So now is the time to get those things accomplished. Now is the time to ask people to, like Mattia was saying, to make sure that they are registered, hitting out to someone that you may not have spoken to in quite some time, or someone you know who has relocated and may not even know where their voting precinct will be, or even what may be on the ballot. Make sure that we have those conversations, and they're so easy to have because people are actually interested. We just have to start the conversation. And I think that's up to us to make sure we are the pillars in our society. So we have to start that conversation. And sometimes it may be a little uncomfortable, but I think all of us know how to kind of back out of that a little bit so that it's not polarizing. But we do want to go to each other in kindness and in love, and in expressing to them about the reason that it's important to vote, the reason that we are asking for them to get out to vote, and just informing them of what the options are that are available.
Thank you so much. I have a question in the chat that I want to bring to the forefront. There was a question by, I think it was Suzanne, I just saw it pop up, asking about if there's any legal action that can be taken against the gerrymandering and other things that we're seeing out in the political space. So does anyone have any answers on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're pursuing legal options, but I will be honest. I mean, I think legal options are slim. I mean, we're looking into it, but I mean, we just saw Alabama, who actually had whose state Supreme Court, overturned their maps because they were gerrymandered and they diluted the Black power. And then it was appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically, overruled that injunction because they said it was too soon before the election. And they've indicated that they might be even looking to kind of overturn the only way that you can sue federally now is by racial gerrymandering. You can't sue for political gerrymandering, has been deemed through the Supreme Court as okay. So there seems to be some indication that they're even going to weaken the racial gerrymandering opportunities to sue. So the courts, some states have had, some states have different laws on their books they have gerrymandering laws on their books. We do not. So legal strategies are going to be hard, but we are looking at opportunities, but this is going to be a hard go. Cheryl, do you have any thoughts to add on that?
I wish I did. My understanding is the same, that any sort of legal pursuit would be the only option. I don't know what the success of them would be. I don't have anything definitive. I just know that the only option that there is to use to fight it is to file a lawsuit at this point. And we just don't know how successful it would be.
Yeah, exactly. I did also want to uplift, I think it was Ms. Rosalind Marsh that wanted to talk about, she said, we'll have to check our info if our voter location is changing. That's right. So one of the things about redistricting that I definitely want to uplift it is that pretty much everything has been, your school board, council, state house and senate, your congressional races, all have been all the new draws have been lines have been redrawn. So you may not be in the same districts you were before. So you need to check that. And in addition to that, the other thing that happens during this time is polling places are reassigned. So you may not be voting at the same polling place. Now, I'm not sure exactly when all of that's going to be updated on all of our systems. I'm not sure if you checked now, if you would have the information you need, and we will be doing voter education around all of this, but I just wanted you to be aware that when you vote, you may not be voting. If you're not an early voter and you decide to vote, at your polling place, it might be different. And your districts are going to be different. So you definitely need to make sure you check out where your new districts are. And how voters are going to be formed. There's going to be I know a lot of organizations that we work with, we doing voter education. And you can also go to the Secretary of State's website and put in your address, and it'll give you all your districts when that gets updated. I'm not sure if it's updated now, but it will eventually be updated. And then the Election Commission in Nashville as well. You can go to that website and find all the information you need. And they also send that out to you before you vote. But that's the other thing that I think everybody needs to know is that you're not going to your polling place may have changed. It may not, depending on, circumstances, but it may not change, but it could change. And your districts could potentially have changed too.
Very good information. I'm glad you highlighted that. I do want to also give a shout out to the Equity Alliance, Shalane and Tequila. Hey. They do a lot of work in educating the Black community specifically on the laws and the things that are impacting Black people, Black and brown folks. So Rob has a note in here and said, he gave us some ways that we can get involved. He said, attend your city council, county commission meetings. They are often passing local laws, ordinances, etc., that directly impact our daily lives without our knowledge. He's very, very right in that. And I think Mattia said it, the school boards. Your school boards have meetings. Sometimes they're during the day and other times they're in the evening. If you can attend those, you will find a wealth of information that you may be totally oblivious about. And it will also help you in choosing who you will vote for. So voter education is number one. Voter registration is number two. I guess I should flip that. Make sure we're registered. I do have one more question. I know we're getting close on time, and if we have a couple of people that would like to unmute, we can bring you to what I call the stage. We can bring you up and you can ask them a couple of questions before we move into our next session. But what are some policies or laws that we should closely watch this year? We know that the redistricting is already done, but are there some specific policies or bills we need to watch this year and that can make us stand up and stand out where there are some clear inequities? Any Senate bills or House bills?
Yeah, there are, and I'm actually trying to. I don't have them off the top of my head. I was actually trying to pull up an email. We have, we watch the bills and we have some legislative huddles that we kind of go over. And I wish I known that question was here because I would have pulled it. I would have.
You can drop it in the chat. You can drop it in the chat, Mattia, or give it to us later. It will be included in the recording that we give you. And I think that is very important. That's one of the things that I've done with my family.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that there are a lot of organizations you can follow. The Equity Alliance is one, Turk is another. They have, they are following legislation this legislative session. I know that there are some really bad immigration bills up this time, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but I know there's some really, really bad ones. One in particular that I know is coming up is there's some really bad education bills. I think one of the bills, I believe, they're trying to outlaw cities from being able to pay for education for children that are undocumented. So that is one of the pieces of legislation that has been filed. I know that is just insane, but there are others. So I don't have all of them off the top of my head. And Cheryl, I'm gonna try to see if I can find this email and find a few more, but Cheryl, you may have some.
Sure, go ahead. That's the one that I was looking for as well. Because that one came up on our radar because we thought that it was absolutely insane. Because it was saying that if these children were undocumented, then they could not go to school. I don't even know why that made sense to whoever presented that. It's detrimental to the entire society, but that one was the main one that I was concerned that I had seen. but we do have our political action committee that also looks at those. And I was trying to see which House bill. Here it is, House Bill 1648. That's the one that deals with education, and stating that, you know, the children should not be educated because they are undocumented. But that one was the main one that had come to the forefront for us. But it's, as far as other bills, I know that we have our legislative day on the Hill, so we're still going, which will be on Tuesday, the 15th. So we're still going through the ones that we want to present to our legislators and asking, you know, how we can discuss, how we can advocate for or against, just depending upon which ones they are. But we have not finished compiling our bills that we will be presenting. That is something that we're working on for this weekend.
Excellent.
I was
Yes,
gonna
go
say,
ahead.
another thing that I want people to be aware of this new this year is, I mentioned school board, but for the first time this year, school boards will be partisan races in Davidson County. So there will be so school board races will be on on the primary ballot this year. Last year, the state legislature passed a law that allowed for counties to have partisan school board races, which I completely think is a terrible idea.
Yes.
It is just not, you know, I'm not going to go into it, but I don't think it's a good idea. But all the parties got a chance to vote on whether or not they wanted to have primaries, and both the Republican and Democratic parties voted to have primaries in Davidson County. Other counties are different. So if you're in a different county, you might need to check to see. They're all counties and all parties are not the same because they got a chance to choose. But in Davidson County, there will be school board races will be on your primary ballot this year for the first time.
There are some others. Thank you for that, Mattia. There are some other bills, the HJF 0652, calling for the completion of the construction of the wall. House Bill 1994 calls for the removal and relocation of undocumented immigrant families. So we have a lot of work to do. And it is really, really imperative that we continue to have conversations and meetings and spaces like this and do our work together, because it's going to take all of us.
Yes,
so yes, and I want to announce, and I forgot to mention that Michelle and Debbie, who you see during our American Sign Language group from Bridges, we thank you for being a trusted partner. They help us on so many levels. We love each and every one of them. Thank you all for being here. So it is now 4 minutes before we are done. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question? What we will do is acknowledge you by raising your hand. Your hand is at the bottom. You look at reactions, your reactions button, and then there's a nice little hand that says raise hand. If you could click that, we'll get one or two, and then we will have to say adieu to Cheryl and Mattia. And we ask you both to hang around too. It's going to be an exciting day, and we'd love to get all the information and knowledge and support that you still have, even on these other topics. Is there anyone, and I'm going to ask my Zoom team, is there anyone that we will ask to unmute to ask a question of our esteemed guests, Cheryl and Mattia, around standing up and standing out, policies, voting? All right, so I'll ask if there's anyone that would like to unmute and ask a question. This is your chance.
Let me also clarify the statistics of how important nonprofits are in civic engagement. I said that earlier, but I wanted to get the numbers right. So the 2018 nonprofit vote study, they looked at 64 nonprofits across the country, and those 64 nonprofits engaged 22,000 new voters. And the voters that the nonprofits engaged were twice likely to be under 25, twice more likely to be non-white, and they were 11 percentage points more likely to vote than people that were not engaged by nonprofits. So I just want you to know that, you know, you do have power in this space because you are trusted and people trust you. So anywho, just wanted to put some of those statistics out there for you.
Yes, we love it.
And actually, Mattia, I think that's very encouraging to us who are working in the field, because sometimes it does become daunting when you're out there and you're at a different event, or you're talking to people and they're like, I don't want to this time, or I don't really think my vote matters. You have that conversation several times. So I appreciate you providing those statistics, because that does encourage us to remember that there are people that are out there listening. Just because you get a no one time, don't stop. Do not give up. Do not grow weary, because this is definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
We have a question
Next.
from Nashville Rescue Mission.
Yes, we do. If we could go ahead and unmute, that would be great. Ask your question. This will be our last.
Oh, we can't hear y'all. If you all want to put your question in the chat, we will be glad to address it.
Yes, because the mic is not on. See you. There they are.
Can you hear us now? Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. I'm Simone Lampkin with the Nashville Rescue Mission. I'm a clinical therapist here. Thank you all so much for being here and just sharing all this awesome information with us. I had one comment and one question. So I wanted to piggyback on the whole registration thing. You all said encourage people who you might not know or who you think might not be registered. With this last election, I literally just made live videos on Facebook, and it was amazing to me how people who I assumed might be registered hadn't voted ever. I mean, first time voters at age 28, 29. And I'm sitting here like, oh man, this is crazy. So don't assume anybody may be registered. Just put it out there and encourage everybody. That's my comment. I'm gonna keep it quick. Cheryl knows I'm long-winded, praise God. But anyway, also, how do we get involved with the information, to receive information with attending city council meetings and other meetings to gain more information about this stuff? Like, how do we know where the information is posted, or how do we get a hold of that?
Yeah, I will say all the city information in particular is, if you go to the MetroGov website, every commission, every city council meeting, they have to public notice it. So that means that it has to be out, has to be in front of the public at least 48 hours, but most of the information is up before then. And so all the meeting minutes, you can watch them online. If you can't actually attend, you can watch it online. And then, you can get all the information you need, what dates they are, what time they are, where they're going to be held. The agendas are posted, any addendums are posted. So that's just a good source. And the same thing with the state legislature actually has a pretty decent website. You can actually create an account and you can track specific, you can go through the bills you want to track and you can add them to your own bill tracker. You can track them that way. Again, and some of the organizations I already mentioned, they do a really good job of kind of sharing information, particularly about specific issues, but they share information about when to show up and where to show up. So I definitely also encourage you guys to follow local civic groups like Equity Alliance, Turk, Urban League, NAACP, Civic, and all of that information. A lot of times that information is shared through those social channels as well. So, but if you go to Metro Government and the state site, you can definitely get a lot of information about when the meetings are held, and then you can watch some of them online if you can't be there.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll include those those links that you're saying in our either in the chat here and in the report that you will get at the end of this call. So thank you. Are there any closing words, final words? Cheryl and Mattia, we thank you both for being here. What can you say to ignite us?
Wow, don't grow weary. Just do not grow weary. Continue. Even if you don't feel like you're making a dent, like Simone just said, when she did her videos on her social media channel, she was surprised at people who never voted. So you never know who you're touching. That's why we say don't grow weary, just because your words do matter and they do affect someone. So please just continue to try and always approach people with love, in love, and with kindness, because you never know what someone is going through. So please just try to remember, when you are talking or approaching someone about these issues or any of these topics, just remember to do it in love, and with kindness.
Thank you, Cheryl. Mattia?
I mean, that's perfect, Cheryl. I agree. And I also I want people to give themselves some grace. I think there's a lot of times people kind of attack people that aren't engaged politically. But I want to be clear, like, it is hard, and it isn't intentionally hard. It is intentional that it's hard to vote. It is intentional that they've diluted the power for certain people, right? So, you know, I want people to cut themselves some slack because the system is intentionally hard. So if you haven't participated like you thought you should have participated, that's okay. You know, figure a way to do it now. It's never too late. And as Cheryl said, you know, grace on that, because, you know, it is a hard system to navigate. But the reason why they want us to take that our powers continue to be diluted is because we do have power. You know, if we didn't, they wouldn't care. So, you know, we have this power, and so it is ours to claim and to use. And so I really encourage everybody to do it, even if it's hard. And if you don't understand something, ask a question to somebody. There's no bad answers. You're never going to ask a question that is a stupid question. There's no stupid questions. Ask and seek information. If you don't know, don't be embarrassed.
Well, we thank you both, Mattia, Cheryl, for being here. We want to encourage you to stick around. We have economic inclusion and wealth disparities within the Black community up next. Thank you all for being here. Harry Allen, Joan Flippin, and Herman Hicks are going to be joining us right away.
Yes, I have an issue that I need to see where the city sewers are. And I went on your.
Let's go ahead and mute. And we thank you all. And as we're getting our other people up on the stage, we want to ask you to just take a moment of reflection, write down a note based on what we've just shared. What is one thing that you can do today? And one thing you plan to do tomorrow, even if it's placing a phone call, signing a petition, purchasing a license plate, taking someone to a poll. We all can do something. All right. Okay, looks like we are ready. Welcome, welcome. I call this team money. I would like to first have all of you introduce yourselves. Joan, I'm going to start with you, and then you can kick it over to Herman and Harry in whatever order you'd like. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. I am Joan Fleming. I am with Citizens Savings Bank and Trust, which is the oldest African-American bank in the country. We're certainly proud of that heritage. I am Senior Vice President over mortgage lending and community development. So my job at the bank is mainly to make sure that people have housing, fair housing, that they have programs and access to capital.
All right, Harry, let's go.
Yeah, sure. Harry Allen. I am a native Nashvilleian and co-founder and chief relationship officer of Studio Bank. Studio Bank opened in June of 2018. And today we're about a $600 million bank, 78 employees, with the purpose of empowering creators. As part of my role as Chief Relationship Officer, I am also the bank's Community Reinvestment Act officer. So in charge of making sure our bank complies with the regulation that helps break down barriers to housing and access to capital for small businesses. But we take it a step further as a locally headquartered bank to make sure we're being good neighbors to all of the citizens in Nashville. Happy to be here.
All right, have you. Hey, Herman.
Hey, Don, and hey, Harry and Joan and everybody on the call, and thanks to CNM for a great forum. My name is Herman Hicks, and I'm a Vice President Relationship Manager at First Horizon Bank. My job is to manage our legal private banking. So I work with a lot of judges, law firms, and lawyers, but that takes me into all types of things. So business owners, doctors, entertainers, athletes. I don't have an official CRA title, but I'm a self-proclaimed community activist when it comes to financial disparities and building wealth. And I'm proud to say I also have a nonprofit called Elevated Development, which is focused on closing the wealth gap. So I'm really glad to be here and to be able to share my insights and struggles and experiences in this format. So love to get started.
All right, we're going to jump right on in. I want to point to an article I read a couple of weeks ago that stated that 1% of people in Nashville make, for you to be a part of the 1%ers of Nashville, you would have to make more than $400,000 a year. How does this number impact the Black community, and what can we do specifically about economic inclusion and wealth disparities for our families?
Well, I'll jump in and then I'll let my two counterparts finish it. What it basically does is it excludes a large part of the Black community, the majority of the Black community. It excludes us from programs, housing, opportunity, access. You'll hear me say probably in every conversation today, access, because I think that's what we're lacking most of all. But yeah, the 1% excludes us. It just excludes us.
Yeah, and I would say, when I saw that statistic, my first reaction was, okay, but there's a lot of emphasis that needs to be placed on the other 99%. Only 47% of business loans that are applied for by Black founders actually get approved. Nashville is an MSA that is in the bottom 5% for economic mobility. So, the 1%, okay, 400,000, but it takes $70,000 to live in Nashville. How do we bring as many people into livability as possible?
Yeah, and that 1% is interesting because if you break it down into what I call W-2 employees who work for someone or business owners, just in the banking industry, you'll find a the vast majority of people that work in the banking industry, Black folks tend to work in the branches as opposed to work in the corporate areas. So I think obviously that's a huge disconnect, and that's something in the banking industry we have a problem with, but I see that spread across typically all industries. Then on the business ownership side, you have this mentality. I think it's a mindset. And so we Black business owners typically feel comfortable in the small business space. And I think we have to start thinking large business, middle market business space. And as Joan mentioned, that will require access in several different on several different levels.
And I think it's the best way to say it is occupational segregation. Even with education, we are more likely, even if our other counterparts, our white counterparts, if we have the same education as they do, we are more likely to work in service industries, things like that pay less. So it continues to create a wealth gap among, our different counterparts.
Yeah, and I would add, Herman, I don't know if, I have not found that our Black founders think about scale and size differently, but the barriers to scale a business continue to exist. So I think that founders think about, yes, there are lifestyle businesses, folks that go into business to, open a food truck and improve their way of life, but there are also founders who want to start healthcare companies that are Black, but the barriers just make it so incredibly hard to get there.
Y'all have me over here ready to shout. You're about to say something because some of us are entrepreneurs as well as nonprofit leaders in this call. Go ahead and add what you're saying, and then I want to talk specifically about these barriers and what economic wealth looks like and should look like in the Black community and how we can get there. Go ahead, Herman. You're about to say something.
Well, yeah, and I was going to agree with Harry. Yeah, I think there are definitely barriers. And like Joan said, that the access part, access to resources, access to knowledge, but most importantly, access to capital. And so, you know, in building businesses, you know, typically there's three ways. You can, you know, your balance sheet cash, you can get investors, or you can do some lending. And so, you know, in the banking industry, we definitely have to do a better job with how we're able to overcome these barriers, which is very difficult with the policies and procedures in place. But we've got to figure out how to overcome these barriers, and I'm sure we'll get into that discussion as we move forward.
You jump right into my next question. How do we address the barriers? Because when we talk about building wealth within the Black community and keeping that Black dollar circulating, I want to know from you three what it's going to take for us to get there. And we have allies. C&M has an affinity group of allies. What can they do to help us do our work and get the access that Joan is talking about?
Well, I think the barriers that both Herman and Harry are talking about are basically regulations, bank regulations that exclude a lot of Black and brown people from being able to get that access. It may be based on credit. It may be based on assets that they have or don't have lack of. So I think it is up to, I'm a little bit different since I work for a Black owned bank. We don't have CRA issues. You know, we lend directly into CRA. You know, in fact, a lot of banks pour money into our bank to help them get CRA. You know, Harry knows that, Herman knows that. So a lot, I think what we have to do is create programs that include, create products and services that are tailored around including people of color. That's not always easy to do at a bigger bank. You know, we're fortunate because we get to make some of our own rules. You know, we still have regulators and people that we deal with, but we still get to make some rules that allow us to make some loans to small businesses, to minorities that other banks can't. But I think it's just a matter of having influence and being able to change some guidelines.
Yeah, Joan, I absolutely agree. And you know, what I found is being with a smaller bank, you know, we created Studio to partner with all of Nashville. And that started at the capitalization. So we raised the capital to form the bank from citizens of every zip code, every demographic, because in any organization, the board and the investors set the tone, and that's who you're accountable to. And so we're accountable to a diverse community because a diverse community owns the bank. And that has forced us to think about the barriers that systemically have existed and made it hard for folks of color and underrepresented communities to access capital. One of the examples of that creativity is a new partnership, actually at 12 o'clock on YouTube Live. Follow Philanice Nash, the podcast. Yes, there is a philanthropist in town that formed a fund at the Community Foundation that we are leveraging to support Black business owners. And so this donor is providing cash collateral to step in the gap where a Black founder doesn't have the personal assets, the rich uncle, so to speak, you know, to make things happen. And so it's gonna take creativity, it's gonna take partnership, because the regulation just makes it too difficult.
Yeah, yeah, and that is a great opportunity, and I can't wait to tap into that at noon. I think that's a strong force in the types of things we need.
Well, it'll be recorded. Yeah, don't leave this call to go see it. Watch it later.
But when we talk about the wealth gap, if we kind of bring some science to it, you know, we talk about wealth, you're talking about liquidity in most instances, although it spans across equity as well. But when you talk about liquidity, That is a engine that historically Black business owners and Black families and Black citizens do not have because of the wealth gap. Historians, economists all agree that the wealth gap originated with the transatlantic slave trade and has propelled on. So when you talk about access, when you're looking at scaling a business, if I'm investing $100,000 into my business and I'm gaining a $10,000 return, I'm sorry, a 10% return, that's of course $10,000. But if I'm able to access $1 million and invest that into my business with a 10% return, I'm getting 100,000. And so that scalability is what we don't have in the Black community. And it's because we have this wealth gap, because to access $1 million or more, you can't just have good credit, okay? You have to have some liquidity to back that up. And so that fundamentally, I feel like is a huge opportunity. And I'm glad that we have this forum because we can bring that opportunity to light, because the policies and procedures of banks have this high level standard that we'll get you 100, we'll get you 250. But when you start playing in the 1.5s and the 2s and the 3s, and we all know commercial real estate is up in that level, you have to have a component of liquidity. I can't tell you how many, I've had the blessed privilege to work with some very good Black business owners, and we bump up against this all the time. And so, it's going back to now we got to start building some liquidity. We got to start planning. We got to start figuring out how we can beef up our balance sheet, not just in equity, but we've got to have some of that liquidity as well.
And let me say this too, in the job of an underwriter, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, consumer, is basically to assess risk. And when they're assessing risk, they're looking at mainly two things. There are other factors, but it's credit and it's assets. And that's unfortunate because that's in our community, that's not something, as both these gentlemen have said, that we don't always have. We don't always understand the importance of credit. We don't have access to capital, liquidity, things like that. And so the interesting thing is, as a minority bank, we certainly take chances, and Harry, I know, they're able to take some chances too. But we take chances, and the surprising thing is that giving people opportunities, you can't just look at two things. You can't just look at credit. You can't just look at, of course, they have to have income, but you can't just look at the fact that they don't have funds and say they're not a good risk, because we have created programs to put people in homes. And they didn't have the best credit. They didn't have money. We had to find money. We had to create down payment programs. And to this day, I've been doing this 27 years, and I've been with the bank 11. We don't have any foreclosures, on people that we've taken a chance. So, I think it's important that, banks take chances. You can't just give everybody credit and loans. You have to work with them and get them to a certain point. But it is important that we take chances and tailor things around making sure that they do have access.
The thing that, and the thing that, and I like to just piggyback real quick, the thing that really, really bothers me is you've got the business owner that's in business for less than 3 years. And so we have this barrier of 3 years. This business owner then gets a contract that's going to open up their business or allow them to scale the business, but they've got to finance that expansion. Well, they don't have 3 years, and then they don't have the liquidity to offset or mitigate those risks. And so we find ourselves with a lot of business owners in the first 3 years that are trying to scale and expand without liquidity, basically get shut down by banks. And so we have to do a better job of figuring out that formula right there to give access to capital at different levels and different stages of the business, even if it's within the 3-year barrier that most banks have.
Excellent. Those are very good points. And I do want to, this conversation has sparked a question in the chat that I want to bring to the forefront. Are there additional or similar barriers to financing home ownership loans in comparison to business loans? What are your suggestions to help the Black and Brown communities obtain home ownership? This seems to be a significant barrier that disproportionately affects Black and Brown people that continue to hold people back. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I thank you for the question, because the conversation has centered around entrepreneurship and supporting businesses. You know, still today in this country, the two paths to wealth creation are owning a business or owning a home. And yes, there are barriers for Black and Brown citizens to both. In a community like Nashville, we know what's happening with home prices, which means if you don't yet own a home, it's so interesting what's happened with the economy. Those that own their home have a stronger balance sheet than ever because of the rising, value, and those who are renting are being charged more rent, which makes the gap that has existed even wider. Joan is an expert in this space. You know, we're a commercial bank primarily. We do home mortgages. There's a nonprofit called Affordable Housing Resources. We participate in a down payment assistance program. So I would say access the programs that exist. They don't do enough, and there aren't enough of them, which is why I'm grateful we have Citizens Bank in the community.
And I'll jump in right here, since that is my, that's what I do every day. Last year alone, just by myself, I did 19 million in mortgage loans. And that's not bragging. That's something that we're excited about, because the reason those numbers went up from the previous years is because we realized that there is such an issue. We do all the loans that the big banks do. We do FHA, VA, conventional, USDA. But the problem is, if you don't fit in that box, then you're excluded, and they tell you to go take a homeownership class and then come back and see us in 12 months. And that's just simply not fair, because again, it's like I said, we have to be able to take chances on people, and so what we did was create, okay, if we can't get you an FHA because of one little simple guideline, let's create a program to get you in a home. And once we did that, then we realized, well, they need down payment. So you know what? That's what we're here for. Let's create a down payment program to get people in homes. And then there was issues with the rising cost of housing, and people have to, I've been doing this 27 years. Last year and the year before, I did the majority of my loans in Clarksville, Tennessee, because that's the only place that was affordable. It was like a foreign land years ago, but because it's the only place it's affordable. So guess what? Let's create a program that helps them be able to purchase a little bit more. So we partner with the Housing Fund that with a program called Shared Equity that gives them 25% more than what they qualify for, 25% down payment. So they're still in affordable housing, that's comfortable to them in their budget, but they're able to purchase and stay, closer to the inner city where most of our jobs are, where we're not having to travel and things like that. But, and that's why I said earlier, what we have to do a better job at is tailor programs that fit and be willing to take chances on the community.
Yeah, and really quick, and that's great. I love hearing that down payment assistance, because that actually goes back to the wealth gap, which is liquidity and that sort of thing. But two quick things. I'm heavy in this space as well. Unfortunately, with being in private banking, I'm sometimes outside of the Black community doing mortgages, so I don't get a chance. But in the last 2 years, I've really made a conscious effort to get more involved. The two things I think that come to mind is Black and Brown individuals, we have to do more financial planning. And so when we talk about financial planning, we're talking about understanding our sources of income, letting our sources of income then protect our credit, keeping our credit scores high so we can have low interest rates. Then we have to manage our lifestyle. We have to keep our debt to income under 45%. So if you can do those three things, and then, with the overall planning process, you can gain access to a mortgage loan. Now, the flip side of that is in the Black and brown communities, the values of home, the home ownership level is low, as Harry mentioned. That's huge. So one thing that propels the wealth gap is low home ownership. But then when we buy homes, the home values are much lower than white America, for lack of a better word. So when we go to resell our homes, we get less money back, less proceeds back. When we go to tap the equity, we get less equity to invest. And so I think there's layers and levels to those components, but I think financial planning is the key, and that's something that we just don't do in the Black and brown community. And I'm not talking about professional Black folks. I'm talking about the working class that do not have access to certain resources.
Yeah, and what Herman just shared was one of the saddest realizations for me. We think we've made so much progress when it comes to redlining communities and things like that, but the fact that Black homeowners, when they go to sell their house, have to remove family pictures, so that the appraiser and people who are looking at the house don't undervalue it is extremely sad and not talked about enough about how we address parity in home valuation.
That is so true. And Harry and Herman and Joan, I thank you all for bringing that out. I know our time is getting close, so we ran a little over, so we'll take the time off of the break. So those of you who are here, you will get the full Monty. I do have one last question I'd like to ask. And I want y'all to pay attention to those comments. Thank you all for being in the chat, because your comments and your feedback and your reflections helps all of us process this so much. But Harry's right. When you do sell a house, having to pull portraits off the wall. I remember having to do that when I sold my home, when I left Dale in Austin, Texas. My home sat on the market for almost 2 months. She said, I'm gonna pull it down, pull all your stuff out, stage your things, and it sold within 2 weeks to a white family. I was in a golf community. It's $180,000 home, which is now over 300 now. So yeah, this is amazing. So my last question to you, what can we do to generate wealth and circulate more wealth in the Black community? Herman talked a lot about, the things that we need to be able to get ourselves together. Mm-hmm. We all know that there's a lot of education that has to be done specifically in the Black community around credit and the things that Joan and Harry both were talking about. What is it that we can do today? And I also want you to speak to our allies that are here with us and tell them how they can help us.
Yeah, well, and I'll jump in really quick and pass the baton, but source of income, credit, and debt and DTI management is what I consider financial literacy. Wealth literacy is when we get into investing in the stock market and mitigating risk. And so we've got to focus more on retirement and understand the tax advantages of retirement, the ability to transfer those retirements to a beneficiary as opposed to going through the probate system if we don't have a will of trust for those assets. So we have to start taking advantage of that. And then finally, what I consider an opportunity fund, there's really 3 ways you can build wealth, and that's through real estate, that's through investing in a business, and that's through the stock market. And so we have to understand that process, but that's where we put our protection strategies around, y'all. That's where you spend money for life insurance, you spend money for disability, you spend money for a will and an estate plan. So those assets upon your death, and everybody on this call will die, those assets will be able to transfer to your next generation without, in so many instances, I've been called in too late to try to fix an item where someone hadn't done the proper estate planning. And so we're selling a house, we're fire selling a house, or we liquidating assets. It's a very, very, very sad situation. And so to your point, Don, our allies on the call, I think we just have to continue to educate. I think we have to be open-minded. to understanding that there are, we have some unconscious biases out there that affect how we make decisions. And so in the Black and brown community, there's a lot of distrust. We have the historical wealth gap that's rooted in, racial tensions. And so I think our allies have to be patient with us, but also have to empower us to maybe help us do estate planning, help us to do tax strategy planning, help us to do financial planning, because that's where you'll find yourself building wealth if you're dealing on those types of levels.
Hey, Herman, before you kick it over, can you, just because you said that, talk about your nonprofit for about 20 seconds and what you're doing in that space for youth?
Yeah, so in the banking industry, and we could talk statistics all day, but I have a sample size of 20 years in the banking industry dealing with Black, brown, all races. And so elevated development, I wanted to create a platform to focus on high school students before they get out into the real world. And so our mission is to confront multi-generational poverty and financial deficiencies by closing the wealth gap. And we use the circle of wealth to do that. And that's having them understand sources of income, credit, debt to income, retirement, and opportunity fund. And so the opportunity fund rolls back up to sources of income. But the unique thing about it, Don, is liquidity is key to me. And so we have a program, a 5-pillar strategy of investment for our high school students. We actually teach them the theories, but we also give cash incentives for them to apply those. And so they're able to invest money at a very early age and start learning about building wealth, protecting wealth, and then the transferring of wealth to the next generation. So that's my opportunity to close the wealth gap, so to speak, and allow my talents, hard work, and experience to get out there.
Thank you. Harry and Joan?
I think Herman probably covered most of it. I think home ownership is one of the key factors in building wealth. Equity is directly tied to wealth, understanding equity. And then and Herman covered it, because not only in his banking career, but in his nonprofit, because the other thing I was going to say was talk about money, talk about the things that create, and not just, we can't rely on the school system and everyone else to do it. We've got to do it in the home. We can't be afraid to talk about money, good or bad, whether it's investing. And just really quick, I've talked about so much money, or talk about money so much in credit and things like that with my daughter, who's now 24. When she turned 21, in lieu of gifts, she said, buy me stock, and then that's when you realize finally you're getting through to them. Don't buy me a purse, and then I want to say real quick, let's do things to create wealth. Let's do things as a community, our girlfriend groups, our guy friend groups. When we hardly ever get tax refunds anymore, but when we do, take that money and invest it in something, put it aside, put it in a fund, let's buy land, let's do those kind of things instead of, vacation is nice, everybody needs vacation, but let's do something, since we don't always have opportunity to save money during the year, and savings is important, pull out as much as you can, as often as you can, but when we do get sums of money, let's do something with that money that's going to create generational wealth, and not just spend it on just any and everything, wasting it. So, but I think Herman covered most of what I was going to say is, just talk about money, be open and honest, and money, insurance, investing, things like that. That's how you create generational wealth.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, because Joan and Herman has covered a lot, Mattia Powell, I think on the last panel, talked about the power that we all have when it comes to vote. Well, you have power with your money as well. And so the commercial bank, the way we operate is we are honored with deposits, checking accounts from the community, and then we leverage those for loans in the community. Think about where you're banking, and are they aligned in making investments in the ways that you want investments to be made in your community? If not, look for a bank and a banker that is aligned. And that is the power that all of us who have checking accounts have. And there's a whole lot more to be done, but that's something that I think we can all think about and do.
I thank you all so very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. If you can stick around, we've got the education to prosperity conversation. The pipeline is real, so we're about to talk about that, and we're going to send you all backstage and bring up our next guest. Thank you so much, Joan, Harry, and Herman. You have been amazing. Thank you. So now we're going to bring to the front Mr. Robert Sheryl, Mr. Ashford Hughes, and Dr. Ricky Gibbs. This is an exciting panel. They're going to talk to you about the Education to Prosperity pipeline and all the things that we need to know around equity and that educational system. I am so happy to have this group here. And what I'm going to do is pass off the baton to Mr. Ashford and let him lead the discussion. And we'll start with introduction. Ashford, is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. Is Robert on? I'm not seeing Robert on the screen.
He is coming.
There he is. Okay, I see him now.
I saw him in the chat. Good to see you fellas. I am so excited. I'm gonna go ahead and take me a break. Ashford, if you could go ahead and kick off everything, introductions, and I will be here with you. Sure.
That's dangerous. You're kicking it off to me during Black History Month. Boy, that's dangerous. We finna get in.
When I go way back, brother, like 2 flat tires.
Hey, thank everybody for being here. Thank you, Don. Thank you for Center for Nonprofit Management for hosting this conversation. But we're gonna have an honest conversation, but our conversation today is gonna be grounded in actual upliftment. We're gonna use and narrate the way that we wanna narrate in the form of empowerment for our Black students. And in particular, during Black History Month, with these men on the screen right here, we're gonna have a conversation about education for Black students. Oftentimes, Black students, we get lost or missing in the BIPOC conversation, in the Black and Brown. And while we support all of our brothers and sisters in the struggle, in the empowerment, today we're going to talk about what's needed and what we're doing to amplify and empower Black students within public education. So I'm gonna have us do some quick just introductions of ourselves. I know our time is running, but Dr. Gibbs, go ahead and just give us an introduction of yourself right now.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here with you today. My name is Dr. Ricky Gibbs, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as principal at Warner Arts Magnet Elementary. We're the only Arts Magnet Elementary in Metro Nashville Public Schools. I originally hail from the Sunshine State, so originally from Miami. Got to Nashville in 2001 and has made Nashville my home. This conversation is critically important to me because education truly changed my life. I'm someone that was raised in a single parent household. My mom never made more than $20,000 a year, and no one ever felt sorry for me, but they ensured that I received a world-class education. So I'm someone that I tout all the time. I got kicked out of school in the 4th grade, and now I'm running a school. And the only way that happened was because I got a world-class education, and I also had a mom and a grandma who prayed for me. So I'm excited to be here today. Definitely want, I tell folks, most of the time people get to speaking and they try to say that they're dropping dimes. This morning, I'm an educator through and through. So I'm gonna drop some apples for you this morning. I know you always go back to school and you think that, an apple a day, you give that shiny apple to the teacher. So today, when we drop some moments for you, we're going to definitely drop some apples. So when we talk about how we can truly impact the lives of our Black young scholars, we're going to do that this morning. So excited to be a part of this conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. Brother Robert, haven't seen you in a while, man. Give us an intro about yourself, brother. Good to see you.
Yes. Good to see you all too. I'm thrilled to be a part of this discussion. Again, my name is Robert Sheryl. I'm a Nashville native. Grew up here, seen the city grow and all the different nuances that come along with that. I'm a businessman in the community. I run Impact Youth Outreach as my nonprofit for inner city at-risk kids. I'm also the CEO of the DREAM Initiative, which stands for Decreasing Recidivism Through Education and Mentorship. As a fellow returned citizen, I just think it's important to use my experiences and expertise to give back to those that are coming back to our society, and they should be treated fairly in that regard. And I'm the CEO of Imperial Cleaning Systems. It's a janitorial and restoration company based here in Nashville, started here. We're all over the state of Tennessee with 30 employees. I'm the author of the book, The Journey Back to Now, which hit #1 on Amazon, which kind of gave insight into my life after prison, because I am a returned citizen. And my second book is set to drop this month. It's my birthday month, February the 19th. And I'm dropping Quid Pro Quo, The Laws of Reciprocity, which will be my second book. So I'm deeply excited about this, this opportunity. Again, I dropped out in the 9th grade. I've been on my own. I raised myself since I was 13. And I make a joke as well. I didn't make it out of the 9th grade, but I sit on the board of a community college, and that's Nashville State. So shout out to Nashville State and Dr. Shauna and all the great work we're doing over there. So thank you all for having me.
Awesome. I'm gonna quickly introduce myself, and then we're gonna get right to it. So good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Ashford Hughes Sr. I serve in Metro Nashville Public Schools as the Executive Officer for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I also supervise our school choice team. Importantly, in the community, I co-chair with my good friend, TSU graduate, Lionel Matthews, our local My Brother's Keeper network. I'm involved in at least 3 or 4 mentorship programs through my fraternity, through my Masonic organizations. And one of the things that I'm passionate about in public education is reading, literacy particularly. And as a father of 2 young Black boys, we read nightly because we know the importance of expanding our mind, being exposed. And I mean, I am thrilled. My story, quickly, even how I began the journey of being in equity before it was equity. And I have a 15-year of being a community organizer in politics, working with young people, was because in the end of my 12th grade year at TSU, my best friend was killed by gun violence. I had 2 other friends around the same time, maybe a year later, was also killed by gun violence in the same neighborhood, in the same community. So I made a choice at TSU, as I promised my best friend who was killed, his mother, that I was going to do something that changed the trajectory so that Black boys that look like us didn't end up dead or in jail. And that set me from changing my major at TSU from business marketing to political science. And then the rest is history. And my mission and my focus has been on how do I make certain that communities have access and that we're connected with those in power that see the humanity in us, and that we can change public policy to make certain that Black students, brown students have what they need to be successful. So first question for you guys, Brother Gibbs, I'm gonna start with you. What are right now in this space 3 major opportunities within public education that we need to be, or that can have a positive impact on the trajectory of Black boys and girls right now?
All right, so as we think about that thought process, and we're naming 3, I would like to say 1 is right now we're at what I like to call the awakening moment in society. We have, even though this global pandemic set all of us down, it also gave us the opportunity to reflect over things that we're seeing in our world. Oftentimes, society, I believe we have that squirrel mentality. So many things happen so fast, especially in the social media era, that we would see something, we would have outrage and say we need change, but then something else happened, and then something else happened. So we never really had time to really make impactful change. But because we all had this period where everything slowed down, it gave us an opportunity to truly reflect. And in education, it gave us the opportunity to pull back the curtain on what we had been screaming for generations about the inequities that exist in public education. But it wasn't until everyone had to sit at home and see their child try to be educated through a computer. And it was that moment of, oh yeah, well, we can push everybody online. Well, not everybody has a computer. Oh, that's an easy fix. we're gonna create a bill and we're gonna give every child a computer, but not everybody has internet. And it was mind-boggling to certain people to say, what do you mean you don't have the internet? Yes, in 2020, when all this was happening, we still had people who didn't have internet at their homes. So because we've gone through this period of a great awakening and everyone understands that not every child has had the opportunity to an equitable education, this is the time now that we can really begin to push the conversation about what does true equity look like? What does it truly mean to have an inclusive culture? It's one thing to be invited to the party. It's a totally different opportunity just being asked to dance. So how are we including all children and ensuring that they have an equitable access to an education? So that's step one. This is the opportunity now because everyone is listening. Everyone understands how critically important the role of being an educator is. And shout out to all of our teachers, because for a while, as society has done, I think we took for granted how difficult it is to teach. And when all of us and most of us on this call have had to experience this, and most of us only have 1, 2, maybe even 3 children, and we sit at home and we remember that struggle of trying to get them to focus and get their work done. Now imagine an educator that has 20 or even 25, how difficult that is, right? So it's exciting that now people have that support and understand that we need to ensure that all of those equitable access are happening. Step 2, this is the time that we need to drill down on your passion project, Ashford. It's literacy. Oftentimes in education, you hear us say from kindergarten to 2nd grade, students are learning to read. From 3rd through high school, college, they're reading to learn, because at that point they're learning to internalize the text. But because we've had to really slow down and start focusing in, now is the time that we need to push initiatives on not only putting books in our scholars' hands, but also putting text in their hands that they can see representation of themselves. It's great to have, stories on the 3 Little Pigs or, Charlotte's Web and all the classics. And I truly believe students need to read those classics, but they also need to read a book on Simone Biles, on W. Du Bois, on some of our boys. They need to see that I Promise book from LeBron James. They need to see people that they recognize in literature, so that way that they can get excited. Because if we truly want to make our youngsters literate, not only do we need to put quality books in their hands, we need to put exciting books in their hands that they want to engage in. That final piece, and this is a piece that oftentimes is not talked about in that literacy discussion, is what are we going to do to really push our scholars to improve their writing, especially with what we see with our Black boys. They are Black boys, and I consider myself, even thinking when I was just little Ricky, Black boys are typically rough. They want to run. We want to interact. But then we forget about, we have a group of young Black men that are just excited about sitting down and reading and writing. In education, we have a lot of readers who read really well, but they write significantly lower. I like to tell people all the time, I've never seen someone who writes really well, but doesn't read really well, because you have to read your writing. So this is the time that if we're going to say we're serious about equity work, we're seriously about ensuring that every child receives a world-class education, not only do we have to ensure that they have equitable access, we have to ensure that they have quality literature, but we also have to ensure that we put a focus on their writing. Because if we're truly wanting to remove what I consider the mirror aspect, so most of our scholars, especially our Black males, we're always looking into a mirror. We can see what's right in front of us because we haven't been exposed to things that are past that horizon line, past that sight of vision. So what equity work, what literacy, what opening the doors to writing will do, it will knock that window, it'll knock that mirror down, and it'll create a window. And that window will be that opportunity so that they can look past today's reality and see tomorrow's promises. So when I think about those three things that we can do in education right now, it builds around equity, literacy, and writing.
Awesome. Robert, I know that you do a lot of work with your nonprofit on the outside lens. From your lens, what are some things that we can be doing right now to positively impact the education system from the outside point of view that I know that you work with as well?
Thank you, Ashford. Education inequality plagues our Title I schools in the inner city. Making sure that we get the right funding to these schools so that our kids are not left behind is key, is pivotal. That will be one. Two, instruction, the instruction methods. You got to understand, like a lot of our kids are in and out with IEPs and things of that nature. But I mean, how can you blame them when you got the ratios in some of our inner city schools of 32 to 1, 32 kids to one teacher? How can one teacher do that, right? You have our proficiency scores, particularly as it pertains to reading and math, that are down. So we need to change the way we view and the way we interact with our kids and the different methods that we use for instruction. Lastly, I would say most of our kids are not, I really understand. Going into the schools, it's so hard to just watch these kids dealing with their home life. You gotta understand, a lot of these kids are going through a lot. I mean, you got dads in prison, you got moms in prisons. Most of the kids, especially Black and brown kids, are living with their moms, with their grandparents and their uncles and aunts, and they're fully not understanding the trauma that some of these kids have went through. Me being one of those kids, it's hard to pay attention when you don't know what you're gonna eat when you come home. It's hard to pay attention when you only got 2 or 3 pairs of pants and you don't have washing machine. You don't have the basic necessities in order to be confident to even go to school. So I think that we really need to take a look at home life and how that relates to our kids coming to school. Feminine products for females, haircuts for young men. That does a lot to your self-esteem. And how can you show up to learn in school when, again, you don't feel confident, you're hungry, you're worried about what's going to happen when you get home, and let's not even talk about some of the abuses that are taking place in our homes. It's a lot, and so I think that taking these things into account, whether it be making sure we're getting the proper funding, making sure that we're understanding the home life of some of these kids, and looking at our methods will definitely be a good thing for our kids.
Awesome. I'm gonna plug in there, and I thank you for that. But specifically speaking, and from my vantage point, we look at it from a systems angle, and I always focus on what can we build, what can we do now, but also build towards. As we build towards the larger systemic structures, right? What are we doing now is look at within our schools equity, right? But also understanding and defining what equity is, right? Because it has become a buzzword. Everybody's just throwing equity out there. Oftentimes they're speaking about equality, which we are for equality as well. But what we need right now for Black students in school is equity. That is making certain that they have, based off the data, what they need when they need it to reach whatever they consider to be their ultimate goal of success. That is first and foremost. But when we look at the data, when we look at what's taking place, when we look at research evaluations that are going on across the country to build efficacy and change in our classrooms, we look at making certain that our teachers have a consistent professional learning around culturally responsive education. What does that mean? We have to make certain that teachers are aware of the cultures, not just Black, but the brown that are coming into our classrooms and how that factors in the way that they understand art, the way that they teach them about the reading materials, the way that they inform the curriculum, right? So when we think about many of our school teachers are not Black, they aren't brown. How many of us on this call right now, how many of our educators have ever taken a Black studies class at the collegiate level throughout their education? I would say not many. I'm fortunate enough to have a minor in Africana Studies where that was some of my focus. Many of our teachers don't have that. And there are some things that we need to address to make certain that that culture is built into what takes place in our practices every day. The second thing is around like building what those equity competencies are. And those equity competencies have to be focused on the leadership in that building, the culture of that building, the culture of that classroom, and then also those practices, right? But we have to continue to work to build those and understanding that equity does not guarantee a student's success. What equity guarantees is that the student has the resources and the support to be successful, and that we have the teachers, we have the community all prepared to support these students, because it is a communal process. We put so much on the schools to do alone, but it is a communal process if we say we care and love these students. And the last piece for me that we have to dig into, and that's going to be important as we talk about shifting the needle, is we have to amplify student voice. We have to amplify student agency for our Black students so they understand their place in history, post, pre-slavery, and understanding what that means and them identifying who they are and how they can have authentic agency. And then we have to focus on that parental engagement. How do we engage families differently? How do we engage them where they understand what's taking place and how they can help and support their child moving forward and navigate the system that we currently have right now? Robert, I saw you flagging. Did you want to add something to that?
Another element I want to touch on briefly is that understanding that some kids are not just meant for school. Like I know we preach education, I stand for it, I get it, but we got to understand some of our kids are not college tracked. So what are we doing about that? We've taken vocational and trade training out of school. Plumbers, electricians, janitors like myself, I make millions of dollars in the industry. All right, I didn't graduate. I have a GED, but what I'm trying to get you to understand is that a lot of these kids would learn better with working with their hands and being trade specific. I think we need to get back to that because we're missing out on that element, because a lot of these businesses make $120,000, $130,000 a year on the start, on the inception of the business. And so I really think it's important to get back to our trade programs. We need to invest heavily into it. I think that's important because a lot of our kids are not college tracked. And what we do is that we push it, and then they get to college and they fail. And we wonder why our graduation rates are so low. We have to understand that all kids, they learn different, they have different interests. And so I think we really need to have a conversation surrounding that more.
So I'm gonna ask one question to the group, and I think there may be questions that they want the audience to ask. So when I came on, I talked about we're gonna have a conversation based on our narrative and our truth, really particularly for young Black boys, young Black girls. And oftentimes we see what's happening now is this false conversation around critical race theory, right? But we know that's a false narrative. So I want to ask you men right now, when we talk about literacy, when we talk about the importance of having our young boys and girls read right now, what do we need to be doing? What are we doing currently now to make certain our kids have access to books, to make certain that they're getting the proper instruction to read? And what do we see as a need to make certain that we're continuously pushing the needle in our community to make certain that literacy, I believe literacy is the purest form of activism and the purest form of liberation for our young people. What are we doing and what do we need to be doing, Dr. Gibbs, to get these kids books, to make sure we have them reading, not just at grade level, but beyond?
Yeah, so I'm gonna start with the quote that I live by, and it's a quote from Angela Davis, and it's a thought process that I'm gonna put into the universe right now, and I would hope that everyone will accept this call of action. Angela Davis eloquently told us, "I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept." So if we're going to say as a community, we need to ensure that our young people are becoming literate and we're improving literacy rates, We can't just sit back and say, well, it'll change. We have to be that change and start pushing the envelope. And just like I said earlier, we need to make sure that our students are able to see themselves in that text. It's not good enough to just say we're going to put books in our children's hands. If the book is a dated book, and when I say dated, if you know about libraries and public libraries, we try to overhaul that text. Texts are normally 5 to 7 years because, and I'll make it make sense. We're all Tennessee Titans fans. We'll say, well, we can look at a book. If we see a book with Eddie George, we're super excited. Our babies don't know Eddie George. They know him as, maybe if you're a historian of football or if you follow Tennessee State football, you know Eddie George. But if you don't have a book in your library on Derrick Henry, we're missing the mark. So when we talk about our scholars and what we're doing, we need to make sure that they have those books that not only they can see themselves, but they will be excited about reading. Because when we talk about how we're setting things up, oftentimes, you see someone talk about literacy and they say, well, this book will open the world to you because the sky is the limit. Well, I challenge that thought process, and this is one of those apples that I tell people that I'll drop. We don't preach that the sky is the limit, because there's a quote that says, don't tell me that the sky is the limit when there are footprints on the moon. So because we know that we've already passed through the sky and got to the moon, it's critical that we push our students to not only say that they can see themselves in text, that they can have experience and have fun in text, but just like Robert, don't be afraid to write your own book. We have children authors already changing the game. And just think about the power of your 7 or 8 year old being able to share their experiences and writing books. There's a young lady right in Nashville, Promise, and she wrote the book, I Promise, and she talked about her experience when she went to school with her natural hair. And people made fun of her, and she took that as a moment of saying, well, I'm not gonna shy away. I'm gonna use this to teach and show people the passion of what I can do. And that young lady is changing lives. And she took the power of literacy and said, you know what, I'm gonna write my own book. So just doing things of that nature, putting those books in our young scholars' hands, and making sure that as a community, we're connecting with other organizations. And I've seen Bookham in the chat earlier, but just connecting with organizations like that are constantly bringing books to schools, putting them in our young scholars' hands and saying, hey, these are books that I want you to build your at-home library. And that's the missing part of public education. We have great libraries in schools. We have an amazing Nashville library, a downtown library that children can go to, but they check that book out and we expect them to bring that book back. If we're going to be serious about literacy, and we're going to be serious about building literate scholars, especially in the Black community, we have to start empowering and helping families build their at-home libraries. Because just like Ashford said, how him and his sons read every night, how many parents don't have access to books that they can read with their scholars every night? So that's one of the things that if we can work on making sure that we're getting books in students' hands that they don't have to bring back to us, that will be a critical lever point in pushing literacy, because at that point, now we can build those at-home libraries.
Robert, what about you, man? Thinking about literacy for our Black boys and girls.
Yeah, things have just changed so much. I think, we need to really understand that the old way of doing things have passed away. I mean, I'm just being honest. When you look at YouTube and you look at Instagram and things of that nature, like my little girl, she learns on YouTube. She hates sitting down and looking at a book. It's foreign to her because the times are changing. It's not the same. And so when we think about books and stuff like that, these kids got books on their phones. And so when it comes to literacy, we need to approach it and have a different methodology on how we're going to usher in the next generation of leaders, particularly when it pertains to literacy. We need to practice it, we need to preach it, and we need to have that understanding. And I think that we're dealing with a lot of the old guard who in their thinking are one dimensional. And just listening to these kids, the grievances and the consensus, we just have to take a different approach. And that's what I'm seeing in these schools. The traditional way of learning is changing, and we have to change with the tide if we want to really see literacy not fall to the wayside.
Minute important to that conversation. I know probably won't be able to get to any more questions, but important to that conversation around literacy is getting our kids, whether it's a actual physical book or whether it's a Kindle, to make certain they have a diverse array of books that they can read upon, right? Again, I go back to growing up. I didn't first start out reading a love for reading To Kill a Mockingbird or to read some of these books that are supposed to be novels. My foray into learning to read was through the Source magazine and also through Ebony magazine and Jet magazine, because that was what's laying around my grandmother's house. That's what we read, right? I wasn't reading a graphic novel. I was looking at, man, what's going on in the neighborhood? This brother looks cool in this magazine, or who was rapping about what. We can't always expect our kids to sit down and only read books about science and math. They have to enjoy it, right? So my son, he's reading Minecraft books. I have no idea what Minecraft is. I have no idea what some of this other stuff is. But man, if it's getting him to read and sit down and do stuff, and it's helping him to increase his vocabulary, his thinking, bro, you can read as many Minecraft books as you can. We're going to circle back on math and some other stuff so you can be diverse, but we got to keep challenging ourselves. And that's why with the My Brother's Keeper Network, like, we're going to be starting a literacy campaign throughout the community to make certain that is impactful. And we can also help parents along the way. I know we talk about Bookham. There's another organization that I'll plug. She's doing great work, the Black Book Project with Meredith McKinney. We need to support that project as well, because it's getting a diverse array of books into our students' hand. And where we see the challenge is we have a plethora of diverse book opportunities for our elementary and middle school students. When we get to the high school area is when we need to look at where do we find the reading material that our high school students can read. And again, I go back to, I was reading the Source when I was in high school. It may not have been on the book curriculum, but it was keeping me adapt to reading and learning. And then it led me to another magazine to continue to read on, which was vitally important. So as we close out here, I'm gonna ask 30 seconds from the team, and I'm gonna start with you, Robert. Hey, we're talking about education, Black, brown kids. What do the people on here, what does allyship look like, and how can they be an ally to our community to help our children moving forward?
I think it's very important. There are a lot of boots on the ground organizations like myself. I'm not the typical entrepreneur. I'm not the typical leader. I come from nothing. I built myself up. I've obtained a pardon from Governor Haslam. I've obtained a pardon from President Donald Trump. I am not the norm, but I am very experienced. I have a lot of results that speak through what I've done, through my initiatives in this community. I'm definitely a community leader. And so I say, look me up, look up my initiatives. If you're inclined, get involved. We do so much stuff for the community, whether it be giving back for Christmas times, free gifts, free foods for families. We do free ACT prep in my building here in Madison. I have an 8,000 square foot building here. Have a classroom where we teach free ACT prep. We also feed the kids. I also have my nonprofit Impact Youth Outreach. And kids come here every Saturday from the diversionary program with juvenile court. We have a partnership with the state and making sure these kids see people that look like them be successful. We teach soft skills, social emotional learning, and a whole array of resources, sort of like a wraparound services for these kids. And I've been doing it under for 3+ years without the backing or support that's needed to really get to that next level. But God has still provided. He's allowed me to be successful, so I use a lot of my resources. But I would say get involved, research and get involved. That's a way that we can change. There are a lot of amazing organizations out here that's doing great work, and that's why I would say start there if you want to get involved.
Dr. Gibbs, what about you? Allyship.
Look, I'm gonna take it one step further. Like the Queen Tamika Mallory said, we don't need allies. We need accomplices. We need people that's gonna run right hand in hand with us to make sure that change is happening, because it's something that if we're gonna do this work and do it right, it's gonna take all of us to truly impact changing our Black students' lives. So when we talk about that, it's about every time we take a step. I need our allies, our accomplices to take 2 steps. Some of us have that privilege of being from affluent families or having just that white privilege of having access to things that we can't do. So I need you all to use your privilege, because one of the things that me and my mentor talk about all the time, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And there are certain tables that I just haven't been afforded to throughout history, or just throughout systematic racism, that I couldn't get to. But because I can't get there, if you're an ally, if you're an accomplice and you're at that table, I need you to not only grab me a seat at that table, but ensure that my voice is heard at that table, because until I get to that table, I'll always be on the menu, and I want to eat too. So when we talk about wanting to eat, get us to that table so we can ensure that we can do this life-changing work and continue to change the lives of our young people through the power of a great education.
Awesome. Man, I'm gonna close us out. I'm gonna start with this quote as we talk about it, and I'm gonna go to what Dr. Gibbs said. This is a quote from a former superintendent of African-American male, Dr. Ankrum. And this, applies to where we are here in this city as well. I just want folks to care about Black and brown minds and bodies the way they care about bike lanes, simple as. I want everybody to dissect that, discern that. I want folks to care about Black and brown minds and bodies the way they care about bike lanes, simple as. As Dr. Gibbs, my focus on what allyship looks like, co-conspiratorship looks like, is that, again, we come from a place of empowerment. Black and brown families, kids are empowered, and we don't need saviors. What we need is partners in this work, empathetic partners in this work that are willing to build positive relationships and to check their privilege and to utilize their privilege to fight next to, in conjunction with, what our students need. I'm a big believer in this work, that when I fight for equity, I'm fighting to make certain that my neighbors' kids have just the same type of access and opportunity as what I expect my kids to have, because I know what my non-negotiables are for their education. I'm driving to make certain that every student has that right now. I want everybody to know, and it's called the power of relationships with our young Black and brown, young Black students, boys and girls, is vitally important. There's this book that I'm gonna share, No More Teaching Without Positive Relationships. I think back to my high school times in Knoxville. My school didn't have a lot of diverse teachers. I probably like 3 Black teachers, but the one teacher that I gravitated to was my art teacher, Mr. Sage, a white teacher, but he built relationships with all the Black students that were bussed in from East Knoxville because he knew the value of relationships. Understand that power, continue to listen to Black educators, Black community members when we say what we need, how we need it, and to build success moving forward. Don, I see you hopping on.
Yes, this has been an amazing chat. Oh my goodness. Gentlemen, I am honored. Are there any final words? Ashford, just as he does, that's why he was in this space. He shuts it down with the information. Dr. Gibbs, all that work you are doing at Warner, thank you for your work. Robert Sheryl, you already know. I'm so proud of what you have done with the Dream Initiative and also in your other business. So I am proud and thankful. Thank you, Michelle, our interpreter, because they had your hands going. The information of our speakers for this hour are in your chat. We thank you, gentlemen, for being here and helping us really talk about the things we need to address that opportunity gap. Cherish the minds, the hearts, and the narratives of our Black and brown children. As an educator, thank you, Ashford, because you gave me some nuggets as well. Dr. Gibbs, you gave me nuggets as well, and Robert Sheryl, you're right, we gotta get hands-on, brother, hands-on, and give our children the opportunity to excel and be great, like you three gentlemen here. So thank y'all so much. Please stick around if you can. I know you have other things to do. Brother Hughes got one of the biggest jobs in Metro, but I appreciate you sitting over there. You and I have some other work to do too later this year. So thank you again. We're gonna go ahead and move now to we're gonna have our artists come back to the stage. Taria Person is our artist in residence today, who will do a session for us, give us a nice little production here. And we will be starting here in just a second. Go ahead and grab yourself a seat, grab some water, listen. Taria, it's on you.
There we go. What's up, everybody? I'm back again. And this go around, I got my drum. I'm gonna add in a little musicality. Like I said, I have my book Rainbow Elephant here. So I am going to be doing a piece from that book. It's entitled Dipped in Black. Black lip, fingertip, black scare, black brown blonde hair, straight. The only way in their eyes, surprise the revolution. Can be purchased online in an ebook. Flip, brown, swishing green, repose this halo. High to heaven, high to 7 p.m. town ought to go with that black lung, black sun. Black still sings, it brings around the rosies and falls in love. Pocket full of notes, it chokes up, eyes closed, goes hard. My God, it's looking through black holes, cavities and crevices to find black love, black love, black love, black love, black love, and appreciation. Black tears. Black tears are still clear. Lately, just a reflection of black face on repeat, repeat after me. I mean, them ventriloquists holding up poison, poison control, controlling amber skin babies to fall from weeping willows like cheap pillows, stiff and hard, fossilized, resin in the sun, stained with the sun, refrain from the sun. You may be too beautiful. You may be too full, too light, too powerful, too high, too close, like a bad beast, swung around face to find space, to find place. Lost, areola, in-bra, out-of-bra, honey, stains. Like Coca-Cola, deteriorating follicle on the shoulder, enjoyable, but loses power once it is cracked open. And we, once cracked open, it can't move. For a long time without going back, like we left something, patent pockets for change, build skills, maybe even keys to open up eyes, to open up skies. We act like we can't reach into black hole and deliver, reach in and pull out rabbits, scared of the vibrations, scared to use tongue as navigation to overcome, boy, the temptation. Girl, but never woman, only hope, born in Eden, professional at growing. We create. And can't even look past figure. 8 times in the mirror makes life full of depression, stress and insecurities. But segregate. Can't have my jealousy touching my self-hate now. That's just too close. That's too real. Too many judges against one mental, one pencil sketch. Thank you, thank you. Like I said, that is dipped in black, and it is in my book entitled Rainbow Elephant. It's only $10, and you can definitely get that at my website, www.tariaperson.com. Go ahead and check me out on YouTube as well. That is The Realest Person. That's TheRealest person, Person. Go ahead and check me out. So the next poem I'm going to do is actually a shorter poem, but it's really impactful. So stay with me, stay with me. It talks about what we just kind of like talked about. This poem is called Gap. On this journey, I'm blasting, I want it all back. Everything owed to me, resources, acres, a hi-hat full of cash money, homes, and that's down to the doormats. Instead, the powers that be from the patriarchal hierarchy keep sending biases to bump me like crash dummy off mental and financial tracks. The impact is unfair, but so is life. And I'm told that perhaps it's my fault for not being some man's wife, because he woulda, coulda closed any gap for me, filled any void. Oh, woman, how dare you ask for your value to be raised? But we've never needed permission to state our worth. The statistics, the stories in the news are not perceptions in my head, crowded as burlap bags, superseded with potatoes, or overoccupied like the workforce, they say. And you know how that goes. Yep. That's a facet of a larger work, which you can see on my YouTube channel. Get into it, y'all. But I want to thank y'all so much for having me today. I'm gonna end with one song. It's called Feel Good. It's a hip hop song, and it's gonna make you feel good, I guarantee you. Like I said, I work with a lot of students, and I had the opportunity to work with some students at Nashville School of the Arts who produced the music. So like I said, you can go and check that video out, Feel Good, on my YouTube channel. And shout out to my wife, Chanel. She shot that music video, and I'm telling you, you're not gonna wanna miss it. So go ahead and get you some. But this is Feel Good. And I know we at home and stuff like that in offices, but you can bop on this one, right? So if you need to move, go ahead and do so. Don't this beat make you feel good? Deep breath and it feels good. No stress and it feels good. From your chest and it feels good. Don't this beat make you feel good? Deep breath and it feels good. No stress and it feels good. From your chest and it feels good. It's an internal dialogue. For this for all my good, bring it back now, yeah. Let you know we're intact now, yeah. No unnecessary arguments, no. Got the keys, unlock the problems then. Self-accountability, all I'm saying. Stop all that complaining. We all got excellence, huh? Notice, get that leverage. Essence on the present, I'm stepping out of dreaming, telling about my second guessing, so I'm blessing my ex. Whoever want a portion, yeah, I'm flipping pies. Sacrificing strife with words from the wise. Will not be televised. Checks around us with more than your eyes. Looking through your skies and it feels good. Don't the beat make you feel good? No stress and it feels good. From your chest and it feels good. Don't this beat make you feel good? Deep breath and it feels good. No stress and it feels good. From your chest and it feels good. Gotta know everything, embracing comfortability. Shift change from the pain. All the fit and scarcity. Refrain. Delve into abundance in order to sustain your health and yourself, which is your wealth. Can you feel that? Vibrations like peace, love, power, joy, is contact. Oh, what an impact, because all of us are worthy, but at your own pace. In fact, don't hurry, don't worry. Like Molly said about the team, everything is everything. So when you in the valley, don't forget your heels and your skills for real. You're more than a conqueror. You're human. Keep tally of success, lost in all the lessons. The power to be who you are, no stressing. Never dim your light, shine bright. You a star, light it up. Be you, be exactly who you are and feel good. Don't this beat make you feel good? No stress and it feels good. From your chest and it feels Feel good, feel good, feel good. Don't this beat make you feel good? Deep breath and it feels good. No stress and it feels good. From your chest and it feels good. Don't this beat make you feel good? Deep breath and it feels good. No stress and it feels good. From your chest and it feels good. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much,
You're so
Sheryl.
welcome.
You are awesome. We appreciate you being here. I have my copy.
Yeah. Get y'all copy. Thank y'all.
That's
I
right.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful day. Thank you for blessing the space. We will have more arts and more of our culture coming your way a little later. But right now, we're going to go ahead and jump in to Ashley Brooke James of Triluna, who is here to talk about health and wellness, and Dr. Brian Marshall to give us an update on the Black health. This is the Black tax that we don't often talk about, but we need to. So I'm going to go ahead and allow them to introduce themselves and the work that they have. And I've got a few questions and we're going to just jump right on in. Welcome to you. Welcome. Thank you both for being here. Dr. Marshall, I want to start with you because the work you do is very, very, very key in a number of areas. I want you to talk about all of it. And then Ashley, I want to end with you on your introduction because the work that you two do with Triluna kind of brings all this home. Dr. Brian?
Hello, everyone. First, can everyone hear me? Okay, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you first. Thank you so much to the Center of Nonprofit Management for having me, Don, Abby, all who helped organize this, to my fellow speaker, Ashley, all the speakers who are presenting today, and everyone here who has filled this event to capacity. Thank you so much for being here. So just a little background about myself. Oh, hey, y'all. Just a little background about myself. I started off working at the First Response Center here in Nashville, Tennessee. Some may be familiar with Edwin Sanders. He was the pillar in the Nashville community by starting Black operated HIV/AIDS organization in North Nashville out of his church, interdenominational metropolitan. So I started off as a case manager working for a SAMHSA grant, which is substance abuse and mental health. And this particular grant had collaborations with other community partners in the city where we worked specifically Black and Brown LGBT individuals, connecting them to care for mental health services, and also connecting them to substance abuse services, in addition to ensuring that they were tested for HIV and AIDS and in care if they needed to be. And my primary focus was between the ages of 18 to 35. I then went on to work for another agency here where I created programs for our high school youth, basically empower programs that help them get connected to care as well, because we started to see in Nashville how some of our 13 to 17-year-olds were being impacted and affected by HIV and AIDS. And we weren't able to pinpoint who these young people were. So I built an empowerment program around being able to educate and connect them to care, which also presented some challenges, which I'll get into a little later. That then birthed me to create my own organization because I wanted to do more, because I felt at the time I was limited by grants and restrictions of grants on what I could do. And so I started an organization called Mashup Nashville back in 2017, which we celebrate our 5 years this month. And we particularly wanted to delve more into doing research, bridging the gap between healthcare providers and clients, educating on how medical providers can better serve clients, but also equipping our community with the tools they need to be able to advocate for their own health. And currently, I am now working at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. So I have the opportunity to work as a senior program manager in the Office of Health Equity. So I oversee a lot of trainings and educational opportunities for our leadership, our staff. I also am a course instructor for our certificate program in health equity for students in the School of Medicine. I also serve on the Neighborhood Health Board. I serve with the Ryan White counsel here with the Metro Health Department, and a host of other things. I won't bore you, but because I know we want to get into some great things, and I want to hear what Ashley has to say as well. But that's just a little about me. Did I miss anything, Don? Anything else? Any other question?
Oh, no, I just want them to know, get ready for these health questions and what this report card looks like. So thank you so much, Dr. Marshall. All right, Ashley, let's talk about Traluna and the things that you do.
Mute. Sorry, I was on mute. My name is Ashley Brick James. I'm one of the co-founders of Traluna, and Traluna is a stress management plus burnout prevention company. We work with corporations on different ways that they can manage their teams and the stress management that comes with it. We actually started this company due to our corporate experience. I actually left my corporate job in 2017 due to burnout, and I was looking for a better way. I was literally looking for, you know, a way to work smarter and not harder, because I was in a high demand sales position. I traveled a lot. I was rarely home, and I developed chronic migraines that took me down months at a time. And that's when I knew I had to make my mental health first. And my business partner was going through similar things, and we came together and we were just like, we're going to change the face of what corporate wellness is. It's more than just fitness, it's actually mental health. And so we've been doing this for 3 years now, and we've really gotten focused, obviously, on stress management. That's our top thing. And I come from health coaching. I'm a yoga and meditation practitioner. So I have all of those things under my belt. I took all of the certifications when I left my corporate job. So I'm kind of well versed in mindfulness. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Yes, so now you understand why I started with Dr. Marshall and ended with Ashley and Traluna, because in the Black community, those of us who work for a living, which is everyone, you do some type of work, even if it's at home, there are experiences that impact our health in many different ways. And then we also have Traluna here, Traluna Wellness, as an example of how to really, you know, address some of those changes that are needed. So my first question for both of you is, tell me about, let's talk about the impact of trauma and societal norms and its impact on the Black body. And I don't care who goes first, just kind of talk about what you know.
Ashley, you can go.
Okay. Well, I will say, I did take a look at the questions, and this is the one I was like, I hope she doesn't start with this one. And there you go. So first I want to talk about, like, we know the impact that has been placed way before 2020. I mean, we have our relatives, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles, who lived through a different time than us, who have shared experiences with us. We've been exposed to experiences at very young age. Unfortunately, our young Black men have been put in positions at very young ages that are traumatic. And so I think about, when we talk about the impact of trauma and societal norms, I think we know about the impact and the trauma that has been brought upon. And I think what our ancestors have instilled in us was the drive to be able to push through, to be able to mask it, to put on a strong face, show up every day, and excel. That's what we were taught from the beginning, is that no matter how hard life is, we're still going to show up and we're going to give 100%. What that has done over time, it has blocked a lot of things. It has blocked conversations that are needed. It has blocked people being able to fully express and feel emotions. And so I think that now it's up to us, this new generation, in which we have done, and I see it all the time, it's time to slow down and unpack. And what that looks like is like, we have more resources than our ancestors, our grandparents, or anybody has ever had. From therapy to group counseling, to magazines, to books, to just everything. There's so many resources. And so I think it's our job now to make the focus on how do we heal? How do we heal? We hear a lot in the Black community about, you know, breaking generational curses and stopping it now. And I think that's the impact that we're faced with now. And that's how we heal. We have to do the shadow work. That's what I like to call it. We have to do that hard work, ask the hard questions, you know, and sometimes it may be calling family members out for things that have happened, you know, over the years, but it is now time for us. Our ancestors taught us how to mask. Now it's time for us as the next generation is to unfold and to start pulling back some of those layers so we know how to heal. So we know how to teach our children and their children how to heal in this. We have the masking thing down. We know how to put it to the side. We know how to show up. But I think it's really more conversations to help us understand our trauma, to recognize our triggers. And I just think that we should tap into some of the resources and not be afraid to do the unraveling, because of course, that's how we heal. I kind of went on a tangent. Brian, you want to add anything?
It's okay, because I was hoping you kept going on, because when I got this question, I was like, I hope she didn't start with this question either. Because the first question I got, I was going to give a nice little cute little answer so y'all wouldn't think I was crazy and jumping on our community too much, but I'm going to go ahead and get into it since this is the day of reckoning.
Make it plain.
Here we go. So, all right, so trauma and societal norms. And so, you know, Ashley, you were kind of getting to really the historic trauma that we all know about, because I mean, we can tie. I'm one of the people who like to go back to the root of a problem and deal with the root, because we can have a solution and come up with a solution, but if we don't identify where the root is, then we don't, that's where we need to start. So, you know, we've been traumatized, we know, by racism, you know, dating all the way back to slavery, you know, when families were separated from each other. We still see that happening today. We're traumatized, you know, within our own community. And I like to refer to that as the vicious cycle of oppression. And this is the part that I want to really like pinpoint. You know, there was a time when we all were once oppressed by an oppressor. And what I see now happening is that we in our own Black community have become our own oppressor. And I think that right there is where we need to take a deep dive into. So this is where you're probably not going to like what I have to say, but that's okay. Societal norms, you know, will say that in the Black community, that you're supposed to be straight. It's supposed to be a man and a woman together. And if anything diverts from that societal norm, they're ostracized, they're dehumanized, they're criticized, mentally abused, verbally abused, physically abused. I had some notes, but I'm just gonna speak just from my heart. I remember many times when I would work with my young people, and because their family, their Black family, Black mom and dad, knew that their child was either gay, trans, or expressed themselves in a different kind of way. Here in our own city of Nashville, many kids were kicked out of their homes. And so I would have kids come to my office who have been kicked out of their homes because of they believe that they are living that they were born to be. And what happens is, I'm on the street now. You throw me out on the street to where, you know, I don't have any stable living arrangements. Now I'm having to do things to survive. I'm putting myself in harm's way. Now I'm dropping out of school because mentally I just can't even be in school because I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna lay my head down tonight, how I'm gonna eat today. I can't even concentrate on my studies. We have become our own oppressor. And I will also go as far as to say and y'all might be mad at me, but that's okay, because God has still blessed me either way. The church also is a big factor in shaping the negative societal norms that also have negative impacts on our health outcomes, not just even for our Black, gay, and trans individuals, but for the whole Black community. Some of the things that are taught, some of the ignorance that has been transferred from history up until now, it is not helping our community at all. And I've been doing this devotional recently about transforming and renewing your mind. And it's time for us to renew our minds. It's time for us to think differently about how we saw things, and how can we push ourselves to think differently about how we can support one another. How can we change these societal norms that are harming us to helping us? How can we see how that if we come together as a community and support one another more and love on each other more, then we can actually see our health and wellness improve just within our own community. I'm gonna stop there because I've been doing a whole sermon, and I want to actually still hear from Ashley. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm gonna leave that there for now, and I'm gonna down and ask me some of the easy questions, Don. Okay.
Okay, I will get to the easy questions, but
Okay.
I'm glad you said that, because what Dr. Marshall doesn't know is that in June of this year, I have a community conversation that will take place on a Friday, and you'll get that information. All these events will be up on our website, that talks about the church and the faith community having a reckoning. So not only are we having to talk about the things of, the ostracizing of those outside of the societal norm or the westernized culture or whatever you want to call it, we also have to talk about the journey from charity, give me a box, to justice, change the system. So yeah, this is going to be huge. I'm gonna ask an easier question now. Here we go. All right. Tell us about the health of Black America today based on your experiences.
Do you want to start this time?
I can. So, since I went real hard, I'll start off by giving what I call some hopeful statements. So how I feel about Black America today based on my experiences that relates to health, I will say I do believe that Black America is becoming more self-aware and educated on how to be better advocates for their own health. I've been working in this field for about 10 years, and I remember there was a time when there were a lot of meetings that happened behind closed doors, and a lot of advocacy that would happen behind closed doors. But what I am seeing now is there more frequent messaging, even just about eating better, about dieting, about exercising. I'll tell you, I just in last January, I did a fast where I was eating vegan food, and I went down to Atlanta to study vegan and almost gave up fried chicken, almost, but I'm still working on it. But I am hearing more conversations about, how to eat better, how to take care of yourself better, how to exercise, more conversations about your sexual health. People are slowly but surely moving away from ignorance, from just understanding that or thinking that a certain group can be impacted or infected by HIV and AIDS, and understanding that it can impact us all. I'm hearing more conversations about PrEP. For those who don't know who PrEP is, it's pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is a pill that you can take every day that can prevent you from being infected by HIV. And I'm also hearing more conversations, which I think is so great, which I know, Ashley, you can speak on this as well, about people really being serious about taking care of their mental health and going to see a therapist. So I am hopeful that we are moving in the right direction as it relates to health for Black America. I'll give my comma here. I do think there still remain some root issues that we need to address, primarily around social determinants of health, and also around addressing how racism is a public health crisis. Historically, racism in medicine has had lasting impacts on the health outcomes for Black America. So my last question was about our need to fix what needs to be community, but we also have on the other side where we need to fix some of these historical wrongs that have shaped how health outcomes for Black America, what we see now. I wish I had some time to really just go into some stats, but I know I don't. But I will tell you that I looked up the Metro Public Health Department's 2021 health profile, just looking at Davidson County. And as we look at, when I say social determinants of health, we're talking about those things like access to healthcare, the neighborhoods that individuals live in, economic stability, educational access. All these things have an impact on our health today. And if I look at some of the stats in Nashville, and this was a 2021 report, but homelessness in our city has increased. But we still see a lot of the buildings in our city, these new businesses and new condos, they have increased as well. And so where's the problem? I'm a little confused here. We see that when we talk about access to healthcare, just in 2017 in Davidson County, there was one primary care provider for every 1,060 residents, one dentist for every 1,296 residents, one mental health provider for every 310 residents. I can keep going on and on, but I think that we have a lot of work to do to fix the gaps in access to care, providing quality care, better services for our Black community. So when I tell you about Mash Up Nashville and us trying to bridge that gap, we need to have more conversations bridging that gap between healthcare providers. We need to have more conversations with our policy leaders in our cities, not just policy leaders in government, but policy leaders at health organizations. How do we change policies within our organizations and within the city of Nashville to help us get to a place to where we are truly serving the needs of our community? I'll stop there, Ashley.
That was beautiful. Ashley?
So when I was making notes for this question, the 4 bullet points that I put down: access, fear, self-awareness, and comfort. And you kind of tapped into all of them. And I just want to kind of give my spiel on each one. The access thing is the number one. We can't talk about, the health of Black America without talking about the racism that comes with it, and just some of the stats, a lot of the things that you were just saying just now, Dr. Marshall, just talking through all of that. But I also think when we talk about access, we have a lot more access to things now, but there's also things that we're not willing to try because we don't see representation in place. And I think that we've come a long way because we are seeing more Black doctors, Black dentists, Black therapists. We are seeing a reflection of ourselves, what makes us feel a little bit more comfortable when it comes to that. Because when we go to the fear part, it's us feeling comfortable, right? When we talk about Black women and, pregnancies and deliveries and stuff, those are not conversations that people are having, at all. And I have a whole story that my neighbor told me on how she was treated as a Black woman when she delivered her baby. she almost died. And if it wasn't for her husband advocating for her and basically about to blow the place up, not literally, but literally, they didn't get the treatment or the resources that they need. So again, we talk about access, we talk about fear. That's because all we want is representation. We want to feel comfortable talking to someone. I have a Black female doctor and I love her. I feel like she can understand me and what I'm going through in my life. And I can understand her too. It's all about representation and having that reflection of that. And also, I think, us Black people and brown people have come a long way as far as the fear that we hold. There was a lot of things that we heard a lot of times, well, I don't need to know because I'm going to die anyway. But I think people are yearning, when you talked about education, Brian, people are yearning to learn more so they can better take care of themselves. And so that goes with the whole self-awareness, educating yourself. And again, just feeling comfortable and breaking some of the things that we saw while we were growing up. I have men in my family that have never been to the doctor ever. And, I look at my brothers now and they're very, something's wrong. I'm going to go see what's wrong with me, but they're setting a reflection when we talk about representation for the younger men in my family, for their sons and for their daughters. Again, we just want to feel comfortable. We want to be educated, and we want to see representations of ourselves in these positions. So we do feel comfortable as far as taking better care of our overall health.
Absolutely. That was key points everywhere. So I have one last question because I know our time is so short. And what I will offer to both of you, I have some additional community conversations. These, for those of you who have not been to a community conversations are 1 to 2 hour sessions that we have on Fridays, either between 9 a.m. Central Standard and 11 a.m. Central Standard, or 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, where we discuss issues like this. We have LGBTQIA, we have, we're going to include one on health and wellness. Within the Black community, we have a Jewish affinity call where we learn about different people, different cultures, different customs. We talk about anti-Semitism, and we invite all of you to these spaces. So you will see these two again. They are definitely on my list, and we want to make sure we include that in our chats as well. But they're always on our event page. They're free and open to the public. Share it, share it, share it. So my last question for you is, what can we do? What things can we do to support Black health, physical and mental, and support our LGBTQ community and our trans community specifically, the most abused at this point? What can we do as people of color and allies to help support Black health, Black women, Black health, Black trans, Black everything? What can we do?
I'm going to say, always be an advocate for mental health, be an advocate for health in general. Like, I think for what we can do for Black and brown people for each other is something that we've always kind of strayed away from, is share experiences. Ever since I started this company, my company does a lot of shared experience when we talk about situations and what we're going through. And the one thing that we always hear is, I didn't know you were going through that. And I know when I was young, I was always told, you don't tell everybody your business. But what I've learned by doing the work that I do is that when I share experiences, sometimes people will share experiences and share resources that might have worked for them. And so we have a whole new pool of conversations and resources that are available to us. I am a true believer, and it didn't start until I started this company, is in allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Ever since the Miss USA thing happened a couple of weeks ago, just out of the blue, beautiful Black woman who had everything going for her, what we thought, right? I have literally started asking my best friends, we have mental check-ins. Like, I need to know, how are you mentally? Like, not okay. Okay is not, we can't answer, okay, I'm good. Like, we have to give detailed around how we are mentally. And I think that's important because it's very quick to just be like, I'm gonna check on my friend, how you doing? I'm good, girl. And everybody goes on about their life because they're busy. Again, like I said at the beginning, we all just gotta slow down, because in order for us to properly manage our health and manage our stress, we gotta slow down. And I know the world is going fast, but we gotta ask the hard questions. You have to do check-ins. And for our allies, advocate for us, show up for us. My business partner is a white woman. I tell her all the time, when I get pregnant, I go to the hospital, you coming with me, because if nobody listens to me, they're gonna listen to you. And I'm dead serious about things like that. But show up, advocate for us, use your voice, because your voice is gonna be heard more than ours sometimes. So just keep showing up.
Thank you, Ashley. Final words, Dr. Marshall.
Yes, I love that, Ashley. And I hope that we can reconnect after this. I want to talk to you more. Absolutely. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some mashup resources in the chat. And this is specifically for LGBTQ. trainings. And so if you need more resources, more education training around certain topics, and even if you go in there, you don't see a topic that you're interested in, just hit me up and let me know, and we'll be able to address whatever needs that you may have. I do want to speak quickly on allyship. I think that this word allyship gets convoluted and a little bit, and we think that just like when a white person says, "Ooh, I have Black friends," it's the same thing like a person said, "Ooh, I have gay friends," and thinking that that's just enough. That if you have gay friends, that means that you're an ally. That is not what an ally is. And really, what I believe that an ally is not even just a person who shows up for the marches and the person who may make a post publicly, but an ally really is that person behind closed doors when you're in a group of people who are saying things negatively about certain groups of people, that in that private time, you address them, because we can't always be there to defend ourselves when behind closed doors things are happening, things are being said. And when behind closed doors, the things that are being said also translate into how people go out into the world and act. So correct people behind closed doors and not just on social media posts and showing up to marches and saying I'm an ally and think that's enough. Thank y'all. But in addition, I think that we really have to come, and I know this may sound real cliche, we have to figure out, and I see, when I look I see a lot of names. I wish I could see more faces, but even the faces that I do see are very diverse faces. And I'm so thankful that you all brought this together, because I actually didn't know if I was expecting just Black people here in this space. But I think one of the things that we have to do is figure out how we can really come together and have conversations with people who don't look like us, people who you're not comfortable with, people who maybe at a time you didn't agree with the way that they live their life. Somehow we need to renew our minds, back to the devotion I was talking about, I'm going through right now, which I'm still about certain things besides this subject matter. But it's time for us to renew our minds. And renewing our minds start off with us coming together. I feel like that there needs to be some intentionality around when we convene these conversations, that we have different people from different backgrounds to represent in different spaces. I think that we need to really come together and come up with strategies for how we can work together, how we can hear from each other, learn from each other, grow from each other, and most importantly, love on one another. I think that I can't define what love means for you, but I'm sure that you can look in some area of your life and know that good feeling of love. And I think that once we can see how we translate love in other areas, we need to translate it to places we haven't paid much attention to. And that's within our communities, those people who we ignore, like our Black, gay, and trans community, who are often not supported by anyone. But also when it's something that happens in our Black community, the Black, trans, and the gay community will show up for the Black community, but the Black community won't show up for them. We have to work together. We can't continue doing things how we used to do. Whatever those historic thoughts that have been transferred down from history up until now, we have to eradicate. Actually, right now, we just need to, everybody just press the delete button, your spiritual delete button, delete any thought, any negative thought, or any negative process in your mind that will block you and hindering you from seeing people as people. And that's all I'm gonna say for today, because I'll keep going on and on. And ooh, yeah. I love
Pass the plate.
Yes.
Pass the plate, Dr. Marshall. I'm over here sweating, listening to you. So we definitely will have another conversation on this offline. I want to thank both of you. Any questions that you have, pop them in the chat, because we can follow up with our speakers today behind the scenes and get that to you by the time this recording is available. So I want to thank you both for being here. We're going to move expeditiously to our next group. I want y'all to reflect, because what Dr. Marshall and what she had shared was very huge. So now we're going to talk about policing and gun violence. We have Chief John Drake, Ron Johnson from the mayor's office, my good friend, the wonderful Clement Greenlee, and my Sarah and my judge, one of my two favorite judges on the planet, Judge Sheila Calloway. I want y'all to come to the forefront here. I am so happy to have you on so many levels. And I just want to, we're gonna start some conversations, because y'all are all very popular people. but I want to start talking right now. We're going to talk about crime. Thank you for all being here and being patient. Crime continues to plague our city with a disproportionate amount of violence within the Black community, especially amongst our youth. What is contributing to this surge, and what policies and practices are impacting this? And so when you answer, you can also share a little bit about you and what you're working on, and then answer the question. Who would like to go first?
Well, I can go ahead and go first. First, Dawn, I want to say thank you for having these conversations, and to all the fellow panelists, thank you for what you do in the community as well. This is something that I've definitely been concerned about for quite some time. As we look at homicides and violent crime in Nashville, 80% of our homicides are Black and brown individuals. When you look at the demographic that's arrested, it's the same demographic. So you have a society of people that are almost becoming extinct, and there's no outrage. There's no one saying, we have to do something about this. And that's not just Nashville. When we look at the national landscape, in some cities, it's as much as 86%. I mean, so you get up into these numbers, and it's really troubling. And so we look at our kids, and we see a lack of conflict resolution. We see a disconnect from parenting. In fact, I just visited a school yesterday where I visited with a kid whose father had been arrested, and he had concerns about the police. He really didn't like the police. And the teacher said, would you please talk to him? So I talked to him and told him that I would help him, that I loved him. And he teared up, and I said, I'll do anything for you and your father. And just trying to show kids that we care. But that's the disconnect kids are dealing with too. Another kid inside the school, their electricity has been disconnected for over 30 days. How does that happen? We look at kids that they don't have a meal. So really, what are they gonna eat, right? And so we have a lack of accountability for gun owners. Kids are able to get in the cars. We're 82 more guns stolen this year than at the same time last year. And we had a record year of over 1,300 guns stolen. So you look at, we could go over the 2,000 mark on guns being stolen. So think about this. Kids are going in the cars, looking for change, maybe go buy this, that, do whatever. And now they're coming across guns. They're coming across keys to the vehicle. And so now they're going out and committing these crimes. Then you have parents who are out committing crimes or on drugs or not at home. And so the kids have no accountability. I've seen 11 and 12-year-old kids out at 3 a.m. with a stolen gun and a stolen car. We have to be able to do more about that. And then when kids take a life, they're like, well, I didn't know I could get into trouble until I committed homicide. What are we really teaching our kids? And then with conflict resolution, in our Black society especially, is that people are going from not just being angry, but they're going from 0 to 100. And then before they come back down, they committed some type of horrible act. I was talking to a senator, and he was telling me just something really simple. He said this lady went in McDonald's, she ordered a Big Mac, and she wanted mustard instead of the McDonald's sauce. So she got one with the McDonald's sauce. Instead of going in like we've done for years and said, hey, you got my order wrong, she went in, she threw the hamburger on the floor and started stomping on it and just totally angry about this. And that's really what we're seeing now. And so we really have to work on that. We have some promising strategies. We have the alternative policing strategies where we have group violence intervention that we're working on. Been working with Judge Calloway and Dr. Battle with schools to see how we can come together to design a program for kids as well to try to mitigate some of this. We're also bringing back the Police Activities League, which is something that I was very, very happy with, but we want to look at activities too. Every kid don't want to be was really not an athlete, but what if someone really wants to be involved in art and music? And that's our vehicle, not only to this kid, but also now we have connection to the parent. And I think that's where we're missing, is that kids now they don't have anything. They don't have the community center like I grew up in. They don't have these role models that are helping them. And it's one thing that I always believe in any community, but especially the Black community, you are what you see, right? And so I grew up in an area that was crime plagued, and all of my heroes were people that were committing crimes, drug dealers, all these things. I didn't have police officers, congressmen, and all these people coming in and saying, we're good people. The people that were making it in society where I grew up was committing crimes. And so when you came in and did something with them, then you were taking away the people I looked up to. In fact, I went to school, and I'll stop because I don't want everybody to dominate the call. I walked to school with 3 other kids. They all went to prison. In fact, one just got out of prison here a month ago and committed a series of robberies and went right back. But the only difference in me and in them is that there was a group of men and people in the community who said, we see something in you that's different from everyone else. And they took me under their wing. I thank God, because really, I probably should be in prison or dead, if you really think about it from where I come from. So I'll stop there. I know it's more to talk about. So.
Thank you so much, Chief Drake. Who's next? Judge
I don't
Calhoun.
mind. Yeah, I don't mind trying to follow after Chief. He always makes me do that anyway. So I'm excited about being here and being on this panel, and thank CNN for doing this and putting this on, especially during Black History Month. I am proud to be the first Black juvenile court judge in the state of Tennessee. And, maybe one day, if our legislatures and governors will let us teach some of these things in schools, I might be in a book one year if it doesn't get burned first. But I say all that to say, I want to start with some good news. Youth crime is down, and the number of youth arrests is down I looked very carefully, and we used the police CompStat data to show this, but from 2013 down to now, the youth arrests are down over 60%. And so we are doing a lot of great things. We are working together. We're working in partnership with the schools, with Chief Drake, with the mayor's office, Ron Johnson and his group, with groups like Clemmy's group and Gang and Be About Change and Epic Girl and Fine Design. And there's so many organizations that we are partnering with to give our youth an opportunity. And that's all they want. They want structure. They want opportunity. They want to be in a position where they can thrive in our community. We as adults, on the other hand, are not doing everything that we can to provide that for them. And I think about when I look out my office window and I see this wonderful stadium, and then right across the street, I see a neighborhood that is going through, I don't know what it's going through. On one side, you have people who are living below poverty level. And on the other side, you have people who are tearing down houses and building $400,000, $500,000, $1,000 houses, where the people on the other side are losing their corner market where they could just go and have something off the shelf and not have to worry about any type of prosecution. And so you have people, adults, that are making policy decisions, that are making housing decisions, that are making changes in our communities that are leaving those behind. And as hopefully everybody can learn, there's brain science. And what we know by science is that a youth's brain does not fully develop until they're 25 years old on average. It's usually about 20 for girls and 40 for men. And the men just bring that average up down a little. But our brains don't fully develop until we're about 25. And the last part of our brain that develops is that decision-making part. And so you have these children who are living in these communities who don't have food, don't have good schools, don't have places to go, don't have activities to do, and see things that are changing and moving around them. and are feeling angry and bothered and upset and don't know how to express that. And that's why they end up with me. And so we got to do a better job. I am so happy with Chief Drake and the things that he's doing and bringing PALS back and, helping us and Ron and all his work and our community partners who have stepped up to say, we want to help these youth and we want to make a difference. That's what it's going to take. And it's going to take us to stop saying, oh, the big money that comes in our community, all these people that we're bringing in the sports and everything. I'm a huge Titans fan. Don't get me wrong. I'm still depressed. I'm not gonna be there Sunday. But all of this stuff is leaving our kids behind, and we've just got to do a better job at it.
Thank you so much, Judge Calloway. Ron or Clemmy, who'd like to go next?
Ladies are always first. Go for it.
All right, Sister Clemmy.
Good afternoon. I was just shaking my head because I was like, where do I want to start? Oh my God. First of all, thank you guys for inviting me. I was shocked, just let me be honest. I was like, what? Me? I'm here with them? Oh my God, I'm a them now. So I'm honored. But I've had the pleasure to meet Chief Drake. I think he saw he had no choice because I was Adam. And the reason I done that is because I wanted to meet him myself. I didn't want to go by everything I'm hearing and all the talking and all that. I the same way I did Judge Sheila. I went to her just like that. I want to meet you myself. I don't want to hear all what I'm hearing. Y'all all already know how I work. Let me just say, after 18 years, I'm finally talking to the young man that murdered my son in 2003. Let me just say I'm excited about that because restorative justice, I think I just saw Don put that in there, is a must. Healing and redemption is a must. And I've been fussing and fighting about that for the longest. Coming back up with programs, talking about everything y'all talked about is what's happening. So there's no use me repeating it. Kid not at home. I wanted to say something to, what was it, Dr. Brian, before he left, because he was hitting it. And then Chief Drake just touched on it. Kids going home with nothing, going to bed with nothing. That's the mental issue that Dr. Brian was touching on. And then Drake talking about, that's the anger that they bring it out of the house now when they go home. What you mean ain't nothing to eat? Again, dang. And so now I'm running my ass out there. I'm finna go take Sheila's car, Drake's car, Ron's car. I'm gonna take somebody's car and sell it, or go get it transportation where I can go steal some out of Kroger's. Because this is the only choice I got. It ain't like the lady next door said, come here, Laquan. You can eat with us tonight. We don't do that no more. It ain't like that they say, look at that little badass boy standing out there that late at night. I'm finna call him Dr. Dre. That late at night, Chief Drake, and nobody said, come in here. We can watch a movie, do some marshmallows, do tacos. Don't nobody do that anymore. Yeah, because they scared. Okay, we've been scared since what? The early 400 years ago. So again, when it comes to like, you named it, no more centers, library closed at 5 o'clock. Churches won't let you in. People turn their head. What about people like me? Why? No, I got to throw that in there. Want a building. I've been crying for a building for 10 years because I want to stay 24/7. Those kids is out there at 3, 4 in the morning. Oh, I got something for them. Those kids is out there that want to do carjacking and all that. What I got for them, they ain't even want to jack no car because I'm going to have them jacking up something they're going to be proud of. I already do it. I gave up my whole privacy of my home for these kids. I went the 2 12-year-olds and these 2 13, 14-year-olds that just got caught up in murder a couple of years ago, and these that just recently got caught up. These were personal people to me. I couldn't speak on it because I didn't want everybody coming at me. I tried to do what I could do to hold on to them, but it's so much that I can do with nothing. I appreciate what y'all just did with me, letting me be a part of that grant. I was able to then go get 3 I know treacherous young boys that's in here working with me now. You know what I'm saying? At least I know they ain't, you know. So if I get 5,000 more, hint, hint, I can go get 3 more boys. So let me just say, ain't no using us playing the game, blaming and all of that. I mean, I'm gonna say it and I'm gonna leave it alone. Everybody was just focusing on one organization and everything went in one pie. And I don't care what your name was, Gilligan Army or Clement G. One person and one organization can't do a village. It's gonna take 10 of us. So in that one building that I'm still begging for Chief Drake and Sheila Calloway and Don and Ron, I'm gonna put at least 5, 6 different organizations in there, just like Oasis do and Martha O'Brien do. That's all they do. They got one umbrella with 5, 6 different organizations in there. Let us take our own kids back. You can't handle the truth. They're not ready for the truth. So let us quit letting them raise our kids. I'm gonna give y'all one example and I'm done, you know, for now. There is no such thing as I sent my kid to the school in Fairview and they poured red paint on them and pulled her hair and cut off her plaque. Well, that's what the hell you get. Trying to get your kid to fit in something that don't want us there in the first place. So you either start your own school, you start back school homing, or you go to get back with people like us and let us be the teachers. There's a lot of retired teachers out here that didn't want to retire. We can go back and get them. Now, I'm gonna be like Chief Drake. I'm gonna hush for now. Let y'all get a word in.
Ron, you gotta close us out on this one.
Hey, y'all, look, that's my friend. I was there with her 23 years ago when her son was murdered. You know, we go way back and I'm riding with her and Chief Drake.
You were there when my nephew was murdered in 2016.
That's right. Been there, you know. I'm Ron Johnson, y'all. And Don, thank you so much in Center for Nonprofit for putting this together. You know, one of the things that I'm seeing is exactly what Don and I, back in November, have we announced here in the mayor's office. And I'm hoping anyone that's not a part of what I'm about to say, please become a part of it, because this is exactly what I believe we're going to be able to do to change our city. You know, you asked that question, what is contributing to the surge? You know, and Judge Calloway let us know that juvenile court crimes are down. Even though that they're down, one crime is more than enough. And so therefore, it's going to take the whole entire village to change that. So what we have done in the position that I'm in the mayor's office, and believe you me, I didn't apply for this job, y'all. Big time. You know, I didn't apply, but I just believe I was assigned, and then the mayor and them appointed me to it. So I accept this assignment to do what I believe that I'm assigned to do, and that is find ways to build a village. These are the things that I've experienced during my time in Africa, and I saw how a village truly worked. What I'm seeing on the screen and these 80 or 90 people that's on the Zoom, it is true a village concept, just like Dr. Marshall said earlier. What does that mean? That means that we all find ways to line up, you know, not trip over others, but line up. And lining up, what I mean is how we contribute is we contribute by applying the gifts that we have and the strengths that we have. What I'm looking and hoping that any of these people are here now, join our village, see what we're doing, and let us, you know, show you how I believe that we can be this city, Nashville, that beacon that other cities will look to, an example of what coming together look like. They ain't just talking about it, but being about it. And this conversation right here is being about it. And from this point, I think this is growth only. If people who are here are serious about what we're talking about, because this is where the turn happens. And this is where I believe the trajectory can take place. But it's going to take us all, just like Clement just said. I just said Dr. Clement, because I think you Dr. Clement to me. You know, this is where the change happened, y'all. And I truly believe that these are starting points. And then everybody find where their gifts are, where their strengths are, and we help you along the way. There's money out there in a bunch of different ways. The government can't do it for you. So my question is, as the leader of community safety, is how can we help you help you? And that means that we can do this thing together, but it's going to take us all. We working along, like Chief Drake and I, we work together. We love one another. We know without a doubt that it's going to take us all. It's going to take us getting the community involved. And these are some other things I think people don't hear, is some of the great stories that, you know, our police officers do. Because I get a chance to walk around and be with some of those brothers and sisters out there, but you don't get those stories. And so I'm hoping that as we continue to grow the village, we'll be able to tell you about some of those amazing things that some of those guys are doing, some of the amazing things that just ordinary people in our community that are doing, they are doing, and what the mayor's office is trying to do to support all of that. That is the way I think we're going to change the, you know, the uptick or the surge. And then also, hopefully, we're able to put some policies in place to make it stick.
Sounds good. That's great. I love this group, and I'm glad y'all right before my last group, because this is amazing. I get to work with all of you every week, and I am so thankful. Ron Johnson is the brainchild behind the village, and what he's referring to is the group of grassroots organizations, nonprofits, and partners who are working in the space of gun violence and community safety. We have over how many right now, Ron? Over 100?
We had about 107, and we're hoping to top about 200 by the end of this month. And so any of you guys have nonprofits and are interested, please, we're begging you, we meet every Wednesday. Dawn put that in the chat at 11 to 12 p.m. Dawn is the most amazing teacher. She is that conflict chick, y'all. She gets it done. So please, y'all, join us.
Okay, thank you, Ron. You're so amazing. Thank you. So every week we get together. We've been doing this since November 19th. Every week we get together and we share knowledge in the village. We have speakers come into the village and we talk about ways to scale and build. If you were here earlier, you heard them talking about wealth and being able to generate wealth and scale. We are teaching the nonprofits in our space how to do that. I have a text in my phone right now from a brother who has a book, who's about to blow up and do some other things with some other partnerships. We're looking at getting buildings, like Sister Clemmy said. So we are doing this as a united front. So we want all of you, allies included, come and support us and help us do this work, because all of Nashville is waiting. So my next question to you, when we talk about the Black community, I'm going to shorten the question, but talk to me about trust in the Black community and what needs to happen to get it.
So absolutely, I'll jump on that one, and thank you for that one as well. That's a question that historically we deal with quite a bit, and in the Black community, it's only about 48% that really approve or really trust in the police, and really they have good reason. I stand here as the chief of police to say absolutely they have a good reason. Historically, you look at the Holocaust and that tragedy, police were involved. You look at civil rights, police were involved. You look at some of the other indignities, police were involved. So one of the hallmarks of what we've been trying to do as a police department is have community engagement. And behind that theory is we get to know people as people, and they get to know us as well, and then we work together. And so it's not the object of a business transaction. You go to a call, you finish this call, I don't care about you as a person, I move on to the next call. No, I care about you as a person. And then also, I think one of the things that we have to do in society is that we have to teach that Black is not bad. And not just as a police department, but as a society. And I'll give you a prime example. I'm in Kroger's about a month ago, and this lady's shopping and she has a purse in a cart and she's reaching up to grab something. Some white guy walks by, nothing, she keeps shopping. I walk by, she clenches her purse, right? I mean, I'm the chief of police, but all you see is me in jeans and a t-shirt, you automatically think I'm gonna steal from you. And so we have to change that mindset. And then another thing we're doing, really as a police department, is that one of the first things I told our public information officer is that we have to put out the positive things that we're doing, more of those types of engagement. I want people to see that. I want to see the good that we're doing. The media, they highlight the bad things, and those things are troubling too. I see I wake up and I watch the CBS morning show just about every morning. And every time I see an incident in another city and state, I cringe. And then I see something just recently in Minneapolis, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. But I have no control over that on this level. But what I can do is try to make our police department the best, and then we can reach on a national landscape. I talk to chiefs around the country, and they're looking at things that we're doing, the initiatives that we're doing to build trust in the community and the community engagement. And so that's where it starts. And so another thing I'm looking at is, I'm Greek, part of Phi Beta Sigma. I put it out there, fraternity. I know, I see the Delta there. But, and so we're service minded, right? We want to do things in the community. And so I'm looking at doing a community police academy that involves Greek organizations, right? And that's another way we can reach into to the Black community by bringing in all of these leaders, whether it's, God, I mean, it goes on and on. We've had almost presidents of the United States part of, Greek organizations. And so we bring them together, talk about what we're doing and how we can branch out in the community a lot more. That's promising. And I think it's going to be really, I'm not going to dominate this, but I'll stop there and let everyone else go. But that's just some of the things we're doing.
Yeah, it's definitely all about building trust. And it's not just trust with the policing, it's trust with the entire system. And I stopped using the word criminal justice system a while ago because it hasn't been a just system for all. And so it's a criminal system, and we do a really good job of making people criminals. And we don't do a good job of being just to everybody that we see. And I recognized that early on in my career when I was a public defender. And, when I was a public defender, I didn't trust the police at all. And I had way too many clients that were coming in with the same stories of I didn't do anything. I was scared, I ran, and I got beat. And I heard that over and over again. And so I believed that I couldn't trust the police either. And it took me a long time till I got into a position like this, where I got to know people like Chief Drake and Inspector Imhoff and Captain Howie, who were generally good people who wanted to help our community, who happened to be police officers. And so I learned, I can trust them. I can work with them. And so we have so many different partnerships that we work with the chief and his people to make a difference. And it took me time to build that trust. And so when I have a young, scared child that's in the streets for whatever reason, I can't expect him to trust that police right then and there. And so I am happy that Chief recognizes that, and they're doing a lot of things to make community policing a priority. But beyond that, it has to come once, let's say someone comes into the system, let's say they are arrested, whether it's rightfully or wrongfully, they are brought to a system that no longer takes care of them. And a system that, allegedly you're supposed to be innocent until you're proven guilty. But we all know it's more like you're guilty and then good luck in trying to prove that you're innocent. And so I have, I remember in my younger years, and the reason why I can't lose weight is I represented a client who was running down the street with the trench coat, and he got arrested because he looked odd in the street. And I said, see, that's why I don't run. That's why I don't jog, because I'm a Black person, I'm running in the street, I might get pulled over. But then I had to trust and argue my case in that situation and say, that's not right. Just because he's a Black person that's running doesn't mean he's doing anything wrong. But time and time again in our system, it just magnifies itself. And the more you brought in for things that may not have been an actual crime, the system is saying, oh, yeah, I'm sure it was a crime somehow. Let's see what your punishment's going to be. And so we're working really hard in juvenile court to change that narrative and to change that and to make sure that we are believing that people are innocent until they are proven guilty. into giving them an opportunity to speak. You know, there are a number of judges that don't look like me and don't believe like I do, but just because you come into the courtroom and you're a little nervous and you have an attitude and you yell at me, doesn't mean that you're disrespecting me. And I shouldn't hold you in contempt because of that. I should give you a chance to we don't teach people how to act when you go to court. When you go to court, don't do this, don't do that. We don't have those classes. And so when you come to court and you're acting like I don't suspect you should act in court, I shouldn't automatically believe that that means you're being disrespectful to me. And so if you come to juvenile court, I'm working hard with all the magistrates that I work with to don't treat people like that, to give them a chance. Let them vent, let them cuss you. What's it hurt to get a cussing? You get cussed and you move on. You say, okay, I'm glad you got that out your system. Now let's talk. Where can we go from there? And you let these things go and you don't keep further criminalizing people. So it's a system that we've got to change. And it's going to take each and every one of us to recognize that we have biases, that we have disbeliefs, that we are not just to everybody. And until we get to that point where we're ready to change it, then we're going to continue to be in the same cycle. So we've got to change our system to make it truly a just system.
Thank you, Judge Calloway. With this question, Clemmy and Ron, let's talk about trust within the Black community. And I want you to also take it to those workspaces.
I'm laughing because I know y'all see me looking down back and forth. I done got 4 phone calls from prison since I've been on here, out of all the Zooms that I'm on. And I get all the phone calls from prison, and I'm trying to tell them I'm telling them guess who I'm on the Zoom with. I'm like, I got judge this and the chief this, and I know y'all see me coming up my mouth. And they be like, what, for real right now? And I'm like, yeah, at all times. Y'all call me right here. But look, I need the trust with the community, with the Black people, period, not just the police. We need working on. But let me just share this real quick. I ended up in handcuffs at 12 years old on South 8 and Shelby, because that's where I ended up coming from the country, moving into the Jack Casey homes. On Fridays, the people that worked all day being maids and butlers and whatever they are, cab drivers or whatever, like my mom and my dad were. Well, on Fridays, they all get out in the yard and fry fish and play cards, 5 up and Trump and all that. Get their little beer and just have their little music and bother nobody. But the police would deliberately just come every Friday, not Thursday, not Wednesday, just every Friday, and just come to their yards and just kick over everything and tear up the table and pour out the fish grease and all of that. So they snatched up one elder woman, and just the way they snatched her up and threw her against the wall, it does something to me at 12 years old, Chief Drake. It did something to me, y'all, Judge. So before I realized it, I done snatched him, the police officer, to get him off of her. And so when I snatched him, of course, they all come now and snatch me, but they took my arm and put it so far in the back of my head that the back of my head was touching my neck. So I kept telling the judge it was a reflection of my knees. So my leg kicked him back in his groin because that hurt. So I got charged with assault and battery on a police officer because I kicked him in his groin and saying that I was trying to beat him. I was like, but he put my hand back there. You know how they hit your knee at the doctor and your leg just automatically kick up. But that's my excuse. My reflection was. But anyway, that's what got me in handcuffs, y'all, at 12 years old. And I still can't get that intent to assault and battery thing, aggravated assault, whatever it is, on my record 20 years later. So the other thing is I saw is when Noah had a panel at the 15th Avenue Baptist Church. It was a panel on how Black boys should act when they get pulled over by the police. Was Chief Drake, I think I mentioned this to you during some of our meetings. That don't work with me. I'm okay with going through that panel and that section, but after that break, the next 30 minutes need to be the Black boys sitting in that chair now and the police sitting over here, because they need to tell them how they need to act when they pull us over. You don't necessarily have to come with your gun all the time, cursing at us all the time, got my kids crying, you know, got my wife terrified and all of that, and the way you talk to us. But you pull over little Becky, and how's your daddy Ricky on the golf course? Well, hell, my daddy played golf too. So you can't expect something else if you don't give it. And so the last thing here is in 2008, I made Nashville of the Year on the homeless department because I went to Chief Surpass and asked him politely. Now, at that time, y'all, I promise I was politely. I asked him, would you let us as advocates come to the cadet before they hit the streets? And I brought this to you too, Chief Drake. Let us hit the cadets and let the cadets, let us pick out 4 or 5 of the cadets and let them be homeless people. And we put on the police uniform. I mean, it ain't the real uniform, but it's like the police coat. And we become the police. Now we get to go spit on them. We get to go kick them. We get to talk to them bad. We get to arrest them 100 times in one day because they ain't got nowhere to sleep. And one officer actually started crying, and it touched me because he got it. He got the way it is that they are being treated out here. And just because you behind that badge, you got to have a soul, a spirit. You got to have a heart. And so that's why we can't get the trusting. So the trusting for the police, Chief Drake, it's got to come through some of us, all these people that's on here. We got to work with these kids first and gain their trust before we can get them back to you guys. And the police just can't come and wave at nobody, do a fish fry next Monday. They think everything okay. That ain't gonna fucking work. They gonna have to come and do a lot more than that. So this is why I used to tell Oasis, even when Ron was up there, yeah, my kids are baby kids. But if you give me 6 to 12 weeks to work with them, I'm gonna have them qualified to get in your class now. So I can't bring them up there flopping like that. Of course you finna put them out and call police. Like Judge Sheila said, they all over the place. They kept saying, Miss Clement, why you letting them children disrespect you? They don't know me. She said it best. They don't know me. They talk like that to their mama, church, judge, everything. But in 6 weeks, when they finally called my name, because I've been a bitch for a whole 6 weeks, when they finally said, well, Miss Clement, can I go? Miss Clement? You finally said my name? But it's because I love them and let them call me everything they needed to call me, y'all. Because I was one of them. Wouldn't nobody help me? And this last thing is the clothing and the attitude in the courthouse. When I got sent out there on this sex trafficking thing and got arrested at 12 and 13 again, I know good well you don't know nothing about being out here on no street in no stilettos and a short dress and a half a damn bra at 12 years old with red lipstick on. So something is behind you. So check this out, guys. I will be flying to New Orleans April the 3rd for the governor's wife, whoever the governor is there, for the governor's wife to speak on her panel. She sent for me personally to talk about why they should have closets in the court of sex trafficking. Because do y'all think we want to come out there in front of y'all half naked, looking like we looking? No. So they want to know what I have to say about that. So we have to be like Judge Sheila said. We got to be open to this. We got to tell these kids, I know you don't mean this for me, and let them do what they got to do. But y'all, for real, Chief Drake, y'all got to let other programs come in first to get these kids, to get them where they know how to act in court. That's a program by itself. Training them how to act in court. Even though we're not trying to tell them to go there, but at least let's go on and teach it before something happens. And the last thing, y'all, when we have groups, quit getting everybody come and talk to our kids that have done 20 years, 40 years of life. Get me a Greek brother, get me a frat brother, get me somebody that own a damn technology shop, get me somebody that own a tie shop. Then I don't want to keep telling my kids, oh, well, I did 40 years and now hell, they ain't got no hope and no dream. Bring me some, go in the matter of fact, go give me somebody off a Vanderbilt basketball team. Cause look like they don't want ain't been in jail. They need to talk to my kids. I'm done, y'all. Bye, Felicia.
All right, y'all. Hey, y'all see why we've been hanging for the last 25 years. We still rolling. And look, to answer that question too, Don, describe the trust in the Black community, that it works both ways. The level has to be swinging both ways. One of the most important things that we're doing is, making our young brothers and sisters that are a part of the village understand that it's going to take us all. If we don't do this together, it's going to be impossible. That means the police are going to have to understand that they play a role. The community is going to have to understand that they play a role. The mayor's office, the governor, the government, all are going to have to understand that we all play a role. And whatever that role is, we can't come in with this big eye, this big chest, or this, I'm in charge type of mentality. Now, there are times where things have to be dealt with in the way it needs to be dealt with. That's understandable. But it doesn't have to always be, I'm this and you need to listen to me and you need to shut up or what have you. So I love what Clement just got to saying right there. But our community, one of the first things that I think we have to do in the Black community is find ways to trust each other. And that right there is one of our greater starting points, is trusting each other, because that's where we see, the high area of crime is, Black on Black. But when you think about crime as itself, most of the crime that's committed on a white person is normally 9 times out of 10, another white person. So it's called crime in proximity. So, those crimes are crimes of proximity. So therefore, what we need to do, what I believe is we're going to be creating in the villages, the 3 major things that exist in the conflict. You got an aggressor, you have a victim, and you have a bystander. If all 3 people can be given some different tools on how to navigate conflict, we can change anything that's going on. The aggressor will not be the aggressor. The victim will find ways to stand up for him or herself. And the bystanders, who have the most power, will come together and say, not in our hood, not in our community. And that's what it is that we're working on. And anyone that's on here that would like to be a part of that, those are things that I truly believe that we can do for the willing. And for those who are not willing, I guarantee you, when you'll see the willing doing what we are working on and doing, the stuff that Chief Drake and I are working on, with a number of things with our police department, the juvenile prevention, the gun violence, the cure violence, all of those things, when you start seeing those things taking root, you may not want to be a part at the beginning of it, but you will when you see the success of it, because we got people working together, even if they don't like each other and don't agree. Ain't that right, Clinton?
And on that note, guess what we're gonna have to do, folks? This is why we had them near the end, because this is one of the most robust types of conversations that we need to have. But we have another group that's got to go, and we have to end at 1 o'clock. So we're going to make this a community conversation. So I'm going to ask the 4 of y'all to come back. I'll get the dates with you, and we will have another unplugged version of this conversation. We'll ask some more questions. So thank y'all so very much for being here, sharing your gifts. Judge Calloway, Chief Drake, Clemmy, my sister and brother, Ron, I love you all so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for your hard work. And stick around for the next 15 minutes, because we've got 2 wonderful and amazing people coming up who are going to Miss Lauren. Where are you?
So if I can say one thing before I go.
Yes,
if you can, please follow us on our social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be a part of what we're trying to do, because we want to work with you and we want to show all our messages. So thank you for having me on, and I look forward to coming back.
Absolutely. And Chief Drake, and for others, we will put that in the chat and make sure you get it. Continue to do great work, my friend.
Thank you so much.
So Lauren Fitzgerald and Tamiko Robinson Steele, we thank y'all for being here. We're so sorry. It's been great. So I'm going to shut up, because my sister Lauren, my fellow liberator, will take it from here. I appreciate all of you for being here on this call today. I'm going to let them close us out. You will get the information on next week. Thank you, Lauren and Tamiko. Take it away.
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate you for handing me the mic. If you all just give me a minute, like I shared earlier, I definitely am coming in from another really rich conversation around racial equity in the arts with leaders in the arts community. So that was really great. So my name is Lauren Fitzgerald. I am the managing director of the Intercultural Leadership Institute, which is a partner program of 5 organizations, soon to be 7. It's Alternate Roots, the National Association for Latin Arts and Cultures, the Pu'i Foundation in Hawaii, First Peoples Fund in Rapid City, South Dakota, and SIP Culture, which is in Utica, Mississippi. We're adding 2 new partners. The other partners are going to be the First Alaskans Institute and the International Association of Blacks in Dance. So it's a really fun job. I'm also the executive director of the Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership. I'm the interim executive director for that. Sharon Hurt just retired. And so I was basically voluntold in one of our board meetings, because I was on the board for 4 years, that I should help in this way. So I prayed about it, and here we are. And then I started an organization called Strategize 619 upon leaving Metro Arts, where I managed the Thrive Funding Pool, which awards artists up to $10,000 to do community arts engagements in Nashville. But Strategize 619 is a cultural strategy firm that is dedicated to creating cultural freedom for all through art. So that's who I am. I'm gonna pass the mic to Tamiko because she's amazing. And I'm so excited for you all to meet her.
Absolutely. Tamiko, your turn.
Hello, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here. It was so good to see Judge Calloway and Ron. I haven't seen them at all this year in person, which I usually would have by now. But I'm so excited to be here with you all. I am an actor and performance coach based and native to Nashville, Tennessee. I grew up in the green streets of East Nashville off of Cleveland Street, North 6 in the house. I am currently in a show with the National Repertory Theater called Schoolgirls, or the African Mean Girls Play. We are at TPAC, I think at TPAC down in the Johnson, and we will be there through February 20th. So if you're in town, come check us out.
Okay, great. So we're going to run through a couple of questions, because this really is about our art, music, history, and our diaspora, right? So let's talk about what Black culture is in Nashville and how we can preserve it as a people.
Well, I'll start. Black culture, to me, I mean, Black art has been an influence for as long as I can remember. Everything. We drive style, speech, rhythm, the way people move. We're unique here in Nashville in the way of history. I was speaking to a young lady about HBCUs and telling her that we have 3 within a stone's throw of each other right here. And she was so perplexed by that. And I'm always tickled when people are confused that there is a Black community in Nashville because of this new wave of people that are coming in. But like I said, I grew up in East Nashville around businessmen and pillars of the community like Mr. Winfrey and Mr. Reed with their barbershops, and in the heart of our neighborhood, Mr. Henderson Kelly, who was over, Henderson Kelly Sr., who was over Cleveland Community Center for many a year. He ran all of the summer camps, and he kept us physically into it by making us run a mile every day. And this was 20 something years ago. And he also instilled in us to be great contributors, not only to our community, but to the world. And I'll even take it to my grandmother, who poured into me. She took me to my first play. And she said, I sat there and watched it in awe with no expression on my face. My eyes were just so wide, and she didn't know if I even enjoyed it. And so I always give it up to Ada Bell Moss, who also was such a great part of the community. She fed people when they were hungry, when they didn't have anything to eat. They started my family, they grew up in Dodge City. And so they had a really colorful, painful experience, but also joyful. And they often tell that through their masterful way of retelling their stories of their childhood. So these people, they embody what I think of when I think of Black culture. And I'm just so fortunate to have been able to come up in it because they really shaped me.
Thank you, Tamika. What about you, Lauren?
Thank you for that. That brings me to the very reason why I fell in love with Nashville, is community. And this community has been around for a very long time. Thinking about the HBCUs here, they're very important. They're important because you've got the Fisk Jubilee Singers that, you know, were started at Fisk University, that saved the university and toured, endured, and showed resilience in the face of so much. A lot of them did not even graduate, and they were raising money to build a building that they didn't even get a chance to use. And they sacrificed and were sick on the road for 7 years. And in a space where the world did not appreciate Blackness, but they still appreciated our culture. And so they raised that money for their school. So that's very important to know in terms of the history and why being in Nashville as a community member and a Black community member is really important. Then you have TSU up the road and you got Ed Temple, you know, making magic happen. Wilma Rudolph making magic happen in Nashville. Okay, y'all? Then you've got American Baptist College up the road that is raising up future politicians and movement makers. Nashville is very special for Black people and Black culture, for the world, not just here, not just Tennessee, but the world. So I just, that's why Nashville is one of those places. They say that, you know, the Queen of England said that something about Music City. Regardless if she said that or not, the Fisk Jubilee Singers still were the first recording artists in Nashville. So they are Music City, and we have to celebrate them.
Yes, thank you, Lauren and Tamiko. And I know Tamiko has to run, and we are ending in 4 minutes. But I want to ask you, and we're going to have another cultural moment. So if I can get the two of you in on a community conversation, I'll talk to you both offline because we have to continue this. I just want to know some things that we can do. We have allies on the phone. We also have other artists and creatives, myself included. Honor to you, Tamiko and Lauren, as a fellow thespian, singer, etc. How can we preserve our Blackness, and how can we get our allies to appreciate the work like we just mentioned with the Fisk Jubilee Singers? How can we do that?
Oh, I think acknowledgement. I was listening to this. I saw this snippet of an interview that Denzel Washington did when they were on the press run for Fences, which is a film they made based on the August Wilson play. And the interviewer asked him, so why did the film need a Black director? Could a white director have not produced this work? And his response was, it's not about color, it's culture. He said Steven Spielberg did Schindler's List, Scorsese did Goodfellas, He said Spielberg could have did Goodfellas, Scorsese probably could have done a good job with Schindler's List, but there are cultural differences. And he was just saying that he knows, and he was talking to the other Black people in the room. He said, we all know what it is when a hot comb hits your head on a Sunday morning, and we know what that smells like. That's a cultural difference. It's not just about color. And so I think when you think about it in those terms and just think about the acknowledgement of that and the support of that, be an actual ally and not a savior, but an ally. And my friend Cynthia just said the other day, Black people are not a monolith. Not monolithic. And that just, it's one of the most great things that I've heard in the last couple of days. So yeah, just be an ally, support through and through and through.
Absolutely. Lauren?
I would say educate yourself so that you can understand and show up for people where you feel like they should be there and they're not. So learn how to show up for each other in terms of voice. Buy Black art. Go see Black shows. Keep Black artists employed. So we want to make sure that we are being able to live sustainably as artists that amplify our communities, that make our communities beautiful with murals. We want to make sure that we're advocating for their economic sustainability. So that's really important as we move about and bring artists and bring Black people at the intersection of art and culture into these spaces. So that's what I have to offer.
Absolutely. And I know I want to first of all say thank you to both of you and apologize that we will have to take this into one of our community conversations. We have more to talk about here because in our next conversation, we will talk about co-oping and other things and how to prevent that. And we'll also invite some of our allies to come in and share space as well. And I want to add, when you buy Black and you support Black, pay full price. Don't ask for discounts. And that's for Black and white and Asian and Hispanic and Latin. We are all worthy. We are all wonderful. And we all will do this work together. I want to thank everyone who has been in this space with us today. Tamiko Robinson Steele, I know you got to run to another meeting just now, but thank you. I will be reaching out for an additional conversation to get you in on some of our speaking. Lauren Fitzgerald, thank you for all the work you do and for being a fellow liberator. Absolutely, Wakanda forever. Thank you all for being here as audience members. We will be getting a recording and all of the resources as well as the contact information so you can support these Black artists and you can support the organizations that are here with you in community, as well as those that you did not get to meet yet. If you're interested in the village, send me an email, dawn@cnm.org. I thank you all for being here, funders, supporters, everyone, thank you. We want to bid you a great day. Continue to lean in your learning, love wholly, take care of yourself and others. Thank you. Bye, everyone.